Listen up, I gotta tell you, there is something you should know. I have never really liked you at all. I cannot hide it anymore. I've been thinking about the future, trying to forget about the past. So many ways that I could change for the better. Don't even know where to begin. If I allow myself to dream, will it be as good as it seems? Pull me out of this place in the middle, in the middle. Nothing more to embrace in the middle, in the middle. If I try to climb up the wall, everyone can see when I fall. Take me up into the mountains, send me off into the wild. Misery is still a path I would choose if the alternatives are worse. I guess it's time to find a friend, one who will stick by to the end. Going out of my mind in the middle, in the middle.
This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, it's for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free.
Hey y'all, good Friday, I believe. Morning. Is it Friday? I don't keep track of the days. I know it is October 16th. It is Thursday. Thursday morning. Good Thursday morning. Good Thursday morning. Thank you so much for being here. Stephanie, good to see you. Cara, I'll show you. Somebody sent me one through email, and that was the only reason I had it. And I've got it put up for when we're done with the trial, which we should be relatively soon since they're doing closing arguments today. Oh, good gracious. Hold on. Basil fell. He tries to jump up, and sometimes he can't quite make it. Come here, baby. Hold on, y'all. Come here, baby. Boy, you got stuck down here, didn't you? Ah, I dropped my headphone. There you go. Poor thing. Okay. Lord, I spilled my coffee. Moving on. Hold on. Lord have mercy. I done started the thing. Okay. Let me get it together. One sunny day. Good to see you. Paloa's mom. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Amber, Nola. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Mimi and Jenny Jen A1 says day one. Good morning, my loves. Good morning. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for being part of our speculating family. Now, today we are going to look at closing arguments. They started early with some kind of instructions from the judge, I do believe. They were instructing the lawyers. So we're going to look at that. They have not come back from that to actually start closing arguments. Something had to be fixed with some kind of instructions. I don't know, probably the jury instructions if I had to guess. So we're going to talk about that. And then we will I'll keep up my phone so that we can just jump into closing arguments as soon as they start. Good morning, Sherry Thompson. Good morning. Look, y'all, I want to. So my video that I was uploading yesterday, right? I just learned how to do videos on my computer, okay? And so it's been all day transferring from like where I made the video onto the computer, and then right after the live I started uploading it onto YouTube, and it is still uploading. It's at 90% and says it has an hour and 39 minutes left to upload. So that video should finally be out today. Hey Mariel, good to see you, my love. Thank you for being here. Oh, this just popped up. I'll drop it for you guys so you can sign up for StreamYard if you would like to do so. Quickly, before we get into things, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of our speculating family. Thank you for hanging out with me day after day. You guys are amazing. Adam Montgomery was in the news again, and I wanted to share what I have located on that situation with you guys this morning. Good morning, Dandelion. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So Adam, I think he was doing something. I think he appealed or something to that effect. He appeared in court for his sentencing hearing Thursday, May 9th of 2024. Adam was convicted of beating 5-year-old Harmony to death and then concealing her body for months before eventually disposing of it. Harmony's remains have never been found. Crystal Sorey, Harmony's mother, did not have custody of Harmony when she was homicided. Sorey won a $2.25 million settlement in May from New Hampshire after she filed a lawsuit accusing them of negligence and ignoring signs that Harmony was in danger. So we have a video clip to watch and see what happened with that real quick after this daggum ad.
Square has helped me.
That's fantastic.
A judge has dismissed the wrongful death lawsuit against Adam Montgomery. Remember, Montgomery was convicted of beating his daughter, 5-year-old Harmony, to death. Harmony's mother, Crystal Sorey, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Adam in July, but the judge dismissed it because she failed to serve the required paperwork. Sorey has already won a $2 million judgment or settlement from the state of New Hampshire for ignoring signs that her daughter was in danger.
So that came out. I wanted to share it with you. We'll continue reading. It says Harmony Montgomery and Crystal Story in the picture. In July, Story filed a second lawsuit against Adam, accusing him of wrongful death in Harmony's case. But on October 10th, Judge David Anderson dismissed the case because Story had failed to serve Adam the required paperwork. Adam was sentenced to serve 56 years to life, but shortly after his sentencing, he was removed from New Hampshire State Prison for Men. Adams' record on the New Hampshire Department of Corrections website lists him as being held in a non NHDOC facility, meaning he was moved out of the state. Adam was allegedly moved into a facility in Virginia, and while sources could not tell WMUR why the move was made, state law allows for prisoners to be moved when they cannot be, quote, properly or safely kept, unquote, in state. A search of prisons in Virginia did not reveal where Montgomery was being held. In a statement to Court TV, Story's attorney, Kevin Leonard, said, quote, Adam Montgomery was timely served with a lawsuit and an affidavit of service was filed with the Superior Court on September 15th of 2025. Therefore, we believe this is a court error and will be looking into it first thing on Tuesday when the court reopens. Story's attorney confirmed to Court TV on Wednesday that the case is back on track after court issued an order vacating the dismissal. We talked about briefly, my computer's being slow because I'm trying to upload that video. We discussed briefly Crystal Story getting that $2.25 million settlement. There was a lot of wrongdoing in Harmony's case. The CPS and all that was contacted so many times, and to the extent that she had to contact the mayor to get anybody to try to locate Harmony. And it was after that that they found out that she was indeed deceased. I think that what happened to her daughter was absolutely horrible, but I question whether her mother is in the mental state that she needs to be to obtain money like that. She had substance abuse problems and claimed to be clean, but she appeared to not be so clean, and she she acted very immature about it and with her Facebook posts and videos. So I hope she put that money to good use, considering that it was, money that she received because of the death of her daughter. I hope that she used it to make sure that she always has a place to live and that her other children I hope they got some of it. You know what I mean? I just hope it was handled correctly. Donna Lee, thank you for being like number 10. Good morning. And Shelby, good morning. Hannah, good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. If they did what was claimed in trial, Little Harmony will never be found, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people, Southern Cats, good to see you, my love. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here and hanging out with the speculating family this morning. Um, his Kayla Montgomery said that Adam did not show her where Harmony was, and a lot of people didn't believe that. Having been on substances and with people that acted very much like Adam, unfortunately, I don't think Kayla knows where Harmony is. That is something that Adam would have definitely done by himself, because I think he would have done that by himself so that nobody ever knew where she was. So that basically, if something happened like what happened where Kayla got called to testify against him, she legitimately could not tell where Harmony was, because his thought process, I think, was nobody, no crime. Mayla's mom, good morning. Good morning. Donna Lee, I don't think Emmanuel Haro will be found either, unfortunately, because I genuinely believe Emmanuel Haro was taken to the landfill. And if you think about the landfill in that area, how much trash probably comes in one day, and it had been anywhere from 2 to like 8 weeks since he had been taken to the dumpster allegedly. I don't think they'll ever find him either. Remember Leilani Simon with Quentin Simon, they had her on video putting Quentin in the dumpster, so they pretty much knew where he was, and he still, only a fraction of him was ever found. Unfortunately, it's very sad. But we can keep them in our thoughts, minds, and prayers, and hope that they can find rest, and that hopefully one day they'll be laid to rest. Harmony might be found one day, but it's going to be by like a hunter or something like that, if she's ever found. It will be by somebody hunting mushrooms or hunting deer or something, and it'll probably be way after Adam's gone. Might be after we're gone. Cara said, personally, I don't think he even knows where she is, mainly because he just doesn't care enough. He threw her out like trash. I don't know. Considering again the substance use, I don't know, man. I think he genuinely didn't care. I mean, I think he had compassion because that was his child. I think that she kept using the bathroom in the vehicle because they were living in the vehicle. She wouldn't go by the he would go by the gas station, ask her if she had to go, and the poor child was so afraid. She would say no, and then she would use the bathroom in the car. And Adam's thought process is to beat the shit out of her every time she uses the bathroom in the car. I think he had compassion, but not love. I think that I don't, because they talk about when they realized she was dead, he tried to, like, wake her up. Again, I think he's a piece of shit. He needs to rot in prison. I think I don't think that I think it's going to be stuck in his memory the last time he actually saw her, which is where he placed her, but I don't think he'll ever tell. Not unless they come to him with some kind of deal um that he needs, then he might tell the location of her body. And again, with him being moved to Virginia for safekeeping, he might have had to say something at that point. And they might be looking at for her now. He might have had to give up the location of Harmony in order to be moved prisons so he was kept safe. Unless the prison deemed that he was not safe and moved him because of that. I don't know. Peaches McClure, good to see you. Peaches said, "Hey, all, I might be in and out. Internet company screwed me over, so I have to wait for my husband to wake up to fix it." Well, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Make sure you don't wake him up so he don't get mad. Harmony was so traumatized. She was. She was. Poor thing. I don't think they'll be found either. Remember, that is a lot of Kayla's story, and I don't believe everything she says either. I don't either. And you're right about that. I don't know if she was telling the truth or not, and I don't know if we ever will. Cindy from sunny South Florida, good to see you, love. Thank you for being here. Cara said, I think he tried to wake her up because he was more afraid for himself rather than for the welfare of Harmony. I don't think he has any sort of decent human bone in his body. I agree. I wonder if Kayla had not been there, if the other children would have been treated the same way, but they weren't. See, that makes me think that he has compassion, but Crystal wasn't there to protect Harmony. You know what I mean? Kayla was there to protect their children. I think that I don't know. I don't know if it's because I want to hope that he had some type of compassion for Harmony, or if I see something in him genuine that's actually there that other people don't see. It's probably more so of me wanting to think he had some type of compassion for her. I don't know. It's a very sad situation nonetheless. I know this isn't what we are talking about, but I just realized they still haven't found Emmanuel Haro. We were just talking about him. I don't think they will because Emmanuel Haro had been taken to the dumpster anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks before they found out he was missing. And if you think about all of the trash in that area in California, how many people are there and how much trash that would make being put in that landfill and how little he was, I don't think they'll ever find him. I genuinely don't. Especially Emmanuel, because what they do is they put all the trash there and they basically bury it or burn it. And so even like Harmony, I feel like could be found by a hunter one day if he didn't put her in the ocean. Emmanuel is going to be buried. I mean, until Lord knows the apocalypse, more than likely. Harmony was extra benefits. He had no love for her at all, in my opinion. And maybe I'm just trying to see the best. I don't know. Not the best, but some good. You know what I mean? I just always think back to Kayla being just fine leaving her son with him. Well, I think it's because he wasn't going to put his hands on her son. But why didn't you protect Harmony the same way? You know what I mean? I hope both of their souls can find peace and rest. I know that they're in the arms of Jesus right now, and I can find solace in that. I do believe Kayla saying Adam hated Harmony was the absolute truth. And it's sad, isn't it? That child didn't ask to be here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and look at this. She gave some extra instructions, and then closing arguments, and they're still not back yet for closing arguments. So when they come back for closing arguments, I will make sure that we are there and ready. We can listen to the jury instructions for now. Something had to be removed from what was said. So, hey, Amanda, good to see you. Abellis, good morning, Pumpkin. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my loves. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Just getting started.
We first speak about burglary and false.
We'll take a look at the proposed. You're not objecting to the wording. Your issue is placement.
That's it.
Let's just take minutes to look at it. I essentially adopted 99% of his suggested language.
And I'll say I used his document and then just moved that around. That's it. I looked through the statutes.
AM, good morning. Good morning.
So that's appropriate.
Miss anything they're saying. Boy, she looks like she can't even be bothered to be there. Oh, I've got it sped up. Who's she looking at? Sure is happy to see somebody, probably her family.
Yeah.
I got my coffee right now. She is excited, isn't she, Amanda? Hey, Heather Ann, good morning. Hey, Karen, good morning. Shelby, glad you're back. Good to see you, love. Daisy's Doomday. What is she saying over there? I know that she's trying to like speak into existence that she's going to get that manslaughter charge and get get time served. She does look like the shrunken head from Beetlejuice. Spot on, Dandy. He just said she honestly looks exhausted, not just physically, but mentally. She may just be scared for herself, though. I think she's trying to stay positive because she wants that manslaughter and she wants to get time served. I don't think she'll get time served, but I do think she'll get the manslaughter. When we see her, she's had the HVAC baby, but for the charge that she's charged with, that happened before the HVAC baby. Probably meds. Bob from Beetlejuice. Heck, yep. What in the world is going on with all the noise? I don't know. They're always messing with the mics and being loud as hell. I've got it on my phone too, so I can see when they come back from looking at the sign that says, "We who labor here seek only
While I write the video, I can go back on the record. I reviewed it. I have some
the truth."
modifications.
Talking about modifications? So yeah, it's live on my phone so I can see when they start closing arguments.
Whenever you're ready.
It's on the record, Gabriella. All right, back on the record. Notice, I'm gonna ask you to enter this as court exhibit, whatever number it is, the first draft of the jury instructions.
Court exhibit is gonna be court exhibit 2.
Can you also mark this as court exhibit 3 with plan at the back? It's the second draft of the jury instructions, so that's gonna be number 3.
Second draft of jury instructions. Cara said she looks like she's got the attitude of let's just get this shit over with. I know I'm guilty, just convict me of whatever and let me go. Y'all are so sweet. Saying hey to everybody. Amanda said, hope she doesn't get manslaughter. I don't think they're going to charge her with second-degree homicide. It's crazy that you can commit a crime, go to jail, have a whole
You also mark this as court exhibit
then go to
4.
trial for the crime you did before you had the baby. It is, isn't it?
Defense's proposed jury instruction. I don't think it would be an issue, but I want marked and this is court exhibit 5. That's the United States proposal.
You have the right to a fair and speedy trial. And they put in motions to waive their right to a speedy trial pretty much every time we're talking about a homicide.
All right, go to page 8 of my second draft of the jury instructions. I just want to make sure you all have taken a look at it. I'm concerned with that big paragraph that has language in the negative. So if both sides have reviewed it, I've reviewed it. I don't think there's any typos or any grammar issues.
I mean, it is off of the standard.
It is.
Pretty,
I added burglary and or false imprisonment. That language is in there. Towards the end of the paragraph, it talks about retreating, being futile. Before that, it talks about herself and or others and it would have increased her own danger to retreat. So I want to make sure that wording is acceptable to the parties.
yes,
All right, let's move on to, and Mr. Alcala, I'm gonna leave the placement of the burglary and false imprisonment definitions where they are, only because we have the wording of false imprisonment and burglary after that big paragraph.
I believe that's what I was
Oh,
suggesting.
all right.
It was
Oh my God.
it was Mr. Tomas's draft that was added a little farther down.
Okay. Burglary, my definition doesn't include the intent to commit a crime therein. I'm gonna add in false imprisonment, which is what Mr. Tomas has.
Yes,
So let's move down to the definition of false imprisonment, to the definition of secretly, where I have victim in parentheses. Mr. Tomas, you have the defendant, right?
yes,
Should it also have the minor children?
yes,
So it should have defendant or minor children.
yes.
Can it have defendant or minor child or minor children?
I think that they're leaving that in there because they had the kidnapping charge for locking the kids in the room, but they're going to put in there a possible false imprisonment charge for locking the kids in the room. What I was saying was everybody has the right to a fair and speedy trial, and they always waive their right to a speedy trial. I don't think that they should be able to do that. I think that because she's been in jail for 2 years and that's how she was able to have the baby. I think if you're facing a homicide charge, them lawyers should be getting through it way more than 2 freaking years. That's ridiculous to me. It's in the Constitution, fair and speedy trial. I think 6 months at the most. And that's if you've got several homicide trials, not 2 freaking years. That's insane to me. Lala, good morning. Good morning. You should be able to go and start your time if you're going to be convicted. 6 months should be the max that they should be allowed to have before they come to trial for a homicide. Natural View, good to see you and thank you for being here. I just started watching a few days ago. I do not know who I'm going for, the defense or the prosecution. It would depend on if you think, I don't know. Basically, well, the judge hasn't let the prosecution put up much of a fight. That's why yesterday they said that they wanted to go for manslaughter because homicide in the second degree is, I mean, they didn't even get to present the case to show that it was homicide in the second degree, really. The jail call they should have been able to play where she says, if I'd have known I was looking at 25 to life, I'd have cut him up and put him all over Florida. That shows absolutely no remorse for what she did, you know? Miss King of anything, good morning. I think that she's going to get charged with manslaughter because the prosecution wasn't able to put up much of a fight, really. I've never seen a trial like this. I think she should have been charged with, I don't know. I don't it's hard because you know that she was abused, but at the same time she should not have fired that firearm because when you pick up a firearm, you should know and be ready to handle the consequences if you kill somebody. And she's not grown up any. She's still extremely immature because she had a baby through the vent to try to sue the jail. Like, I would be questioning cognitive ability at this point.
It can, or defendant or another, but defendant or minor children is fine.
Having minor children by the prosecution should be another, the defendant or another.
Yeah, but who was in the house that she says she's afraid for? Kids, right?
They're already
Right.
having an instruction at the very next
Yeah,
sentence
Dandy.
from find another child under the age of 13. It's already addressing that, so it should just be the confinement of the defendant or another.
Over your objection, I'm gonna have minor child or minor children. And wherever you have the word Daisy Link, I just have defendant, just keep it uniform, because that's what I have in other parts of the jury
That's
instructions.
fine.
Okay? If there's no other suggestions, I'm gonna move on to the other parts of the jury instructions.
I have no other suggestions for this portion.
All right, so they've got the camera view up and they're about to start closing arguments. I'm going to skip it forward because
During
we're
his
just
testimony,
talking
that
about
he's,
jury
done the same
instructions.
here
I just
today.
wanted to show
He's
y'all a
gone
close-up
out,
view of her.
And then he was asked.
Look at this look on her face.
Reputation evidence.
Agreed.
She is done with it. I hate when it does that. Hold on.
15 is a blank page, I'll change that. Page 16, defendant statements.
Did that thing again, but I'm not going to close it out. All right.
And 5 and 1.
Earlier today, you did the notice regarding parental rights. It's in the jury chair, so it's about those never read, so we request that it be read on how the piece of evidence.
I got it.
They better
You
have
don't
better
an
audio.
objection to that, Mr. Dumas?
No.
Let me go off record.
The jury's not in there. They're off the record. Orange Rose,
Alright,
good to
camera
see you.
folks. 2 more minutes.
Orange Rose, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for the super sticker. I was in Law and Crimes Live. Let me grab our live. Hold on, I'm going to play this while I grab our live. I want to see the super sticker. Thank you so much for that. That was so very sweet and supportive of you. And I greatly appreciate it. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. I love our speculating family. You guys are amazing. So they're off the record, but they're still live. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Oh my goodness. It's not wanting to load. Hold on. Thank you so much, Orange Rose. That was so very sweet and supportive of you, and I greatly appreciate it. I wonder if she named the baby Breezy too. That's a good question, Dandy. Okay, I got it now. Look, it's got the popcorn. We got the popcorn. Orange Rose is passing out the popcorn for us to eat and chat while we watch the closing arguments. Thank you so much, Orange Rose. That was so very sweet and supportive of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you so much. Yep, popcorn. That's so cute. I love that. I love the little super stickers. Peaches said she looks like she's just ready for it to be over with. She does. That would be an interesting name for that baby. You know she had to name it something related to what happened, I would think. So I'm not muted. They are. because they're off the record. I don't know exactly what they're doing. It's my baby's first birthday today, and it's taking everything in me not to wake him up. Oh my God. Peaches, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Tell him we said happy birthday. That is so precious. Did you do the cakes and all? We always had the little cake for them to like basically have for themselves, the little miniature cake, and then we would have a regular cake for everybody else. The first birthday is just so special. Oh my goodness. He's going to be so excited. He's not going to have no clue what's going on. He's going to get a cake and ice cream and presents for the first time. Oh my goodness. That's so precious. That's so precious. Tell him we said happy birthday, little boy, little precious baby. That's so sweet. I'm so excited for you, Peaches. Don't wake him up. He might be ill. Yeah, it's a baby Peach, isn't it? Oh, could have named her Havoc. See, that would have been perfect. Havoc. That would have been perfect, Mayla's mom. You get the comment for the name of the day. I know, it's so exciting. That would have been the perfect name. I hope she's learned and has grown up from this for her kids at least. Me too. But I question it because, having the HVAC baby and all. Okay, we're live. We were a little bit behind. And now a little baby Peach. Oh. Peaches said he has a smash cake and I'm making a first year down football party Saturday. That cake I am hand making as a football field with those little king cake bites set up as offense and defense. That is adorable. Oh my gosh, I love it. If you're in the Discord, you'll have to share pictures of the cake and I'll share them out. Oh, it's so sweet. On my son's second birthday, he stuck his hand smack dab in the middle of the cake. Yeah, they do that a lot. That's why they started making those smash cakes for him. We had those smash cakes too for my littles. That's an orange. This is a peach. I believe that baby was meant to be here. She's going to do something amazing with her life, in my opinion. I agree with that too. That is some spiritual, like, stars aligned perfectly. God meant for her to be here. I think she's gonna do something amazing too. And honestly, I hope that her mama Daisy, whatever money was gained from doing interviews with the news and telling them about the story, I hope that she's got some kind of like trust or something set up for that baby with the money she made from that. Might not have been very much, but I think she needs to save that for her. I mean, with the picture, she appears to be very much taken care of and loved. And usually with grandparents, they dote on their grandbabies, especially the first one. Peaches said my eldest son, he didn't want anything to do with his cakes. He sat in the giant fruit salad and just smashed fistfuls and chopped fruit. That is adorable. Oh, that is adorable. I bet you got lots of pictures of that. That's so very sweet. There's not a lot of people here, but we can see in the gallery, she's smiling at that girl with the black hair, I believe. Is that her sister? I wonder. Looks like she's related to Daisy, and she's sitting right on the first row. Hey, lovely Bones, good to see you. So glad you are here with us this here morning. Oh, Bella said she'll be a travel agent. I think with her being with that baby being as known as she is, um, hopefully she'll, be able to. I think the news might follow her throughout her life, and maybe she'll, have the ability to do great things. Mayla said, I mean, she might be an HVAC specialist, a travel agent, and I'm guessing she won't like either heat or AC depending on when she was sent through the fence. Lord have mercy. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Read that book way too young. I didn't know that it was a book. I saw the movie. The movie was good. Lord of mercy. That was funny. That would be the perfect name, Havoc, for that baby. That's cute. I've always liked the name Nova, believe it or not. Mr. Speculating named all his children after star constellations. Like their middle name, not necessarily the first name, but I thought that was cool. Virginia? Oh, Lord. Hey, Edith. Good to see you, love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Hold on just a minute. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. So I think they're setting up the cameras. Carr said my nephew's middle name is named after a Star Trek Next Generation character. That's super cool too. That's really cool. The book is somehow worse, yet better. The story goes into more detail, and a lot of things were left out of the movie for obvious reasons if you read it. I'm going to have to look into it and try to read it. I loved the movie. I mean, it's a sad story, but I found the movie very interesting. But I'm going to have to check out the book. It's a sad story. And I think it might have been based on real events. If it wasn't, I'm sure that's happened before. It had you crying at points. Oh my goodness. The Lovely Bones. I'll see if I can pull it up real quick. Let me see while they're doing that. This is going to show the movie. Oh, they just went black anyway. That's the movie. The plot is in 1973, 14-year-old high school freshman Susie Solomon dreams of becoming a photographer. Hold on a minute, y'all. Hold on just a minute. Love you too. It says The Lovely Bones is a 2009 supernatural drama film directed by Peter Jackson. That just tells us about the character. The plot follows a girl who was homicided and watches over her family from heaven. She is torn between seeking vengeance on her killer and allowing her family to heal. An international co production between the United States, United Kingdom, and New Zealand tells us about the people again. Oh, here's the plot. Sorry. Okay. In 1973, 14-year-old Susie Solomon dreams of becoming a photographer. One day, Ray, a boy she has a crush on, asks her out. As Susie walks home through a cornfield, she runs into her neighbor, George Harvey, who coaxes her into an underground, quote, kids' hideout he has built. Inside, Susie grows uncomfortable and attempts to leave. Harvey grabs her, and the scene fades until she is seen rushing past her alarmed classmate, Ruth Connors, fleeing Harvey's den. When Susie fails to return home from school, her father, Jack, searches for her while her mother, Abigail, waits for the police. In town, Susie sees Jack, who does not respond to her when she calls. Susie runs home to find Harvey soaking in a bathtub after seeing the bloody bathroom and her bracelet hanging on a sink faucet. Susie realizes that Harvey committed her homicide. Screaming, she is pulled into the in between, which is neither heaven nor earth. From there, Susie watches over her family. Holly, a friend she makes, urges her to let go, but she resists. Jack believes Susie was homicided by someone she knew. He reaches neighbors. He researches neighbors and eventually suspects Harvey is the killer. Detective Finnerman is unable to find proof as Harvey has carefully concealed the evidence. Susie's sister Lindsay agrees with Jack's suspicion, but their casework takes a toll on Abigail. Abigail's alcoholic mother, Lynn, moves into the house. Feeling alienated from her husband, Abigail goes to California. Susie, in her afterlife, learns that Harvey, who has targeted Lindsay as his next victim, has homicided 6 other girls, including Holly. Harvey has stuffed Susie's body into a large safe in his basement. One night, Jack, carrying a baseball bat, trails Harvey into the cornfield. However, Jack accidentally stumbled across a teen couple named Clarissa and Brian. Brian, thinking they will be assaulted, bludgeons Jack nearly to death while Clarissa begs him to stop, and Harvey watches nearby. As Jack recuperates, Lindsay breaks into Harvey's house looking for evidence that he killed Susie. Upstairs, she finds a notebook containing a sketch of the underground den, a lock of Susie's hair, and news articles about Susie's disappearance. Harvey returns and almost catches Lindsay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't muted. Harvey returns and almost catches Lindsay, but she escapes and rushes home to discover that her mother has returned. She gives the notebook to her grandmother, who contacts the police. We'll finish that in just a minute because they just said all rise for the jurors. But it's not on screen, it's completely black. They better get this on the screen or I'll lose my shit. I'll continue reading it to you while we wait.
All right, folks, good morning.
On jurors accounted for.
Thank you. All 9 jurors are accounted for. We can be seated. Lawyers are present as well as Ms. Lee.
Okay.
I'm sorry
We'll
for the
continue
delay.
in a minute.
So the delay
Yeah,
was
it's
due
a
in
good
part
book.
to audio issues
I mean, a good
in my
movie. I haven't read the
courtroom,
book.
which happened not even half an hour ago. We had to move. I thank my colleague for letting me use her courtroom. In a minute,
Oh my
Lisette is
God.
going to hand you jury instructions because both sides have rested. You're going to read along with me. I have to read it into the record. It's
The lovely
easier, I think,
Bones.
if you absorb the information as you follow along with me. A copy of the jury instructions will be sent back to you as you deliberate. So you don't have to memorize anything in these instructions, but please pay close attention to them. And I'll tell you which page number I'm on as we read along together. There's
Read it. Be safe.
2 instructions that I need to read to you as part of the evidence. Number 1 has to do with parental rights. It's also part of its instructions. The court has taken judicial notice that there are no records in Miami-Dade County terminating the parental rights of Pedro Jimenez. Also an instruction on the use of transcripts. Someone had
Good
asked
luck,
about
Edith.
transcripts. There is a copy of transcripts that will be available to
Well,
you,
good luck, Mayla's
but it
mom,
is an
too.
aid to what you view in the evidence being the statement of Ms. Link that was already introduced into evidence. So you heard a recording and you will be furnished transcripts of the recording. The recording is the evidence. The transcripts are provided to you only as a guide to help you follow. And I'm sorry, as you listen to the recording, the transcripts are not evidence of what was actually said or who said it. If you notice any difference between that and what you hear on the recording and what you read in the transcripts, you must rely on what you hear and not on what you read. All right, so I'm going to read a paragraph and then we're going to start with the jury instructions, and then the lawyers will have an opportunity to make their closing arguments. Both the state and the defense have now rested. The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence or your instruction on the law. However, do listen closely to their arguments. They are intended to aid you in understanding the case. Each side will have equal time, but the state is entitled to divide this time between an opening and a rebuttal argument after the defendant has spoken. All right, I'm on cover page of the instructions. Members of the jury, I thank you for your attention during this trial. You have now heard all the evidence in the case. In a few minutes, the lawyers will present their final arguments. First, it is my duty to instruct you on the rules of law that you must follow and apply to arrive at a proper verdict. I'm on page 2. Daisy Link, the defendant in this case, has been accused of the crime of second-degree murder with a firearm. Introduction to homicide on page 3. The
Okay,
defendant
hold
is
on. We need
accused
to hear
of
this
the crime charged in count 1 of the information of 1 count of second-degree murder, second-degree murder, and manslaughter, all of which are unlawful. However, a killing that was excusable homicide or that was committed by a justifiable use of deadly force is lawful. If you find Pedro Jimenez was killed by the defendant, you will then consider the circumstances surrounding the killing in deciding if the killing was second-degree murder or manslaughter, or whether the killing was excusable homicide or resulted from the justifiable use of deadly force. Justifiable homicide. The use of deadly force to kill a human
We
being
need to
is
hear this
justifiable
part. Hold on.
homicide and therefore lawful if necessarily done while resisting an attempt to murder or commit a felony upon the defendant, or to commit a felony in or upon any dwelling house in which the defendant was at the time of the killing. Deadly force means force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. Great bodily harm means harm that is more than slight, trivial, minor, or moderate. Excusable homicide. The killing of a human being is excusable homicide and therefore lawful under any one of the following 3 circumstances. 1, when the killing is committed by accident and misfortune in doing any lawful act by lawful means with usual ordinary caution and without any unlawful intent. Or 2, when the killing occurs by accident and misfortune in the heat of passion upon any sudden and sufficient provocation. Or 3, when the killing is committed by accident and misfortune resulting from a sudden combat, if a dangerous weapon is not used and the killing is not done in a cruel or unusual manner. A dangerous weapon is any object that will likely cause death or great bodily harm if used in the ordinary and usual manner contemplated by its design and construction. I now instruct you on the circumstances that must be proved before the defendant may be found guilty of second-degree murder or any lesser included crime. Second-degree murder. To prove the crime of second-degree murder, the state must prove the following 3 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Number 1, Pedro Jimenez is dead. 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. 3, there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. An act includes a series of related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design or purpose. An act is imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind if it is an act or series of acts that, 1, a person of ordinary judgment would know is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily injury to another, and 2, is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent, and 3, is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. In order to convict of second-degree murder, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had an intent to cause death. Lesser included crimes. In considering the evidence, you should consider the possibility that although the evidence may not convince you that the defendant committed the main crime of which she is accused, there may be evidence that she committed other acts that would constitute a lesser included crime. Therefore, if you decide that the main accusation has not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you will next need to decide if the defendant is guilty of any lesser included crime. The lesser crime indicated in the definition of second-degree murder with a firearm is manslaughter.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you, love.
Page 6, the definition of manslaughter. To prove the crime of manslaughter, the state must prove the following 2 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Number 1, Pedro Jimenez is dead. 2, the defendant intentionally committed an act or series of acts that caused the death of Pedro Jimenez, or the death of Pedro Jimenez was caused by the culpable negligence of the defendant. Every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention to harm, that violation is negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of manslaughter by committing a merely negligent act, or if the killing was either justifiable or excusable homicide, as I have previously instructed you. In order to convict of manslaughter by act, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had an intent to cause death, only an intent to commit an act that was not merely negligent, justified, or excusable, which caused the death. I will now define for you culpable negligence. As I have said, every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention to do harm, that violation is negligence. But culpable negligence is more than a failure to use ordinary care towards others. For negligence to be culpable, it must be gross and flagrant. Culpable negligence is a course of conduct showing reckless disregard of human life or grossly careless disregard for the safety and welfare of the public. The negligent act or omission must have been committed with an utter disregard for the safety of others. Culpable negligence is consciously doing an act or following a course of conduct that the defendant knew or reasonably should have known was likely to cause death or great bodily injury. Page 7, aggravation of second-degree murder or manslaughter by carrying or using a firearm. If you find that the defendant committed second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter, and you find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime she personally carried or used a firearm, you should find her guilty of second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter with a firearm. A firearm is defined as any weapon, including a starter gun, which is intended to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any firearm, muffler, or firearm silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun. The term firearm does not include an antique firearm unless the antique firearm is used in the commission of a crime. If you find the defendant committed second-degree murder or a lesser included offense of manslaughter, but you are not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that she personally carried or used the firearm, then you should find her guilty only of second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter. Justifiable use of deadly force on page 8. It is a defense to the crime of second-degree murder, including the lesser included offense of manslaughter, if the actions of the defendant constituted the justifiable use of deadly force. Deadly force means force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. Great bodily harm means great, as distinguished from slight, trivial, minor, or moderate harm. The defendant does not have the burden of proving that she was justified in using deadly force. Instead, for you to find the defendant guilty, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was not justified in using deadly force. The law on justifiable use of deadly force is as follows. Defendant was justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent A, imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against her or another. If the defendant was not committing any crime, other than the alleged second-degree murder or any lesser included crime for which the defendant is claiming self-defense or defense of others, and if she was in a place where she had a right to be, then the defendant had no duty to retreat before using deadly force. On the other hand, if at the time the defendant used deadly force, she was committing second-degree murder or manslaughter, or if at the time the defendant used deadly force, she was not in a place where she had a right to be, the defendant had a duty to retreat. The duty to retreat means the defendant had the legal obligation to use every reasonable means to avoid danger before using deadly force. The law does not require the defendant to retreat if she was placed in imminent danger of great bodily harm or if she was placed in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, of imminent danger of the commission of burglary and or false imprisonment against herself and or others, and it would have increased her own danger to retreat, or if retreat, it would have been futile. But if the defendant had a duty to retreat and she could have safely retreated, but did not do so, then her use of deadly force was not justifiable. If the defendant was in a dwelling or residence in which she had a right to be, she had no duty to retreat and had the right to stand her ground and use or threaten to use force, including deadly force, if she reasonably believed that such conduct was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against herself or another. Burglary is defined as follows: entering a dwelling owned by or in possession of another, and at the time of entering the dwelling, the unauthorized person had the intent to commit the crime of false imprisonment. Dwelling means a building of any kind, whether such building is temporary or permanent, mobile or immobile, which has a roof over it and is designed to be occupied by people lodging therein at night, together with the enclosed space of ground and outbuildings immediately surrounding it. The enclosure need not be continuous, as it may have an ungated opening for entering and exiting. For purposes of burglary, a dwelling includes an attached porch.
Okay, I don't feel like that's real important. I don't know. They were talking about an attached
minor
porch.
abduction of a person without lawful authority to do so.
Yeah,
Secretly
okay. I'll finish reading this while she goes over that. We needed to hear about the charges she could get charged with, like homicide or manslaughter, and what were, the stipulations that had to be met for her to get charged with manslaughter. So there's a possibility that she could be found not guilty of anything, like that she could get completely off of the crime, from serving any time and not basically being charged with manslaughter or um, homicide in the second degree, from what I was understanding there, which I found interesting. Okay, I'll start a paragraph back. It says Harvey returns and almost catches Lindsay, but she escapes and rushes home to discover that her mother has returned. She gives the notebook to her grandmother, who contacts police. Harvey has already fled his home, taking the safe containing Susie's body with him. Susie's afterlife begins expanding into a larger heaven, and she is greeted by Harvey's other victims. She resists Holly's urging her to enter heaven along with the others, claiming she has one final thing to do. Meanwhile, Susie's classmates Ruth and Ray are present when Harvey drives to dispose of the safe at a sinkhole dump site on the Connors property. Susie returns to Earth and enters Ruth's body, causing Ruth to faint. Ray rushes to Ruth's aid only to realize that she has become Susie. They kiss, completing Susie's last wish, and she returns to heaven. Meanwhile, Harvey dumps the safe in the sinkhole, leaving it to disappear in the muddy water as he drives away. What seems to be several years later, Harvey meets a young woman outside of a diner and offers her a ride, but instead is insulted when the woman tells him to, quote, piss off, unquote. As the woman leaves, an icicle presumed to be controlled by divine intervention drops on his shoulder, and a piece gets inside the collar of his jacket. While attempting to get the ice out of his jacket, he slips backwards on the icy ground and plummets off the side of a steep cliff to his death. Time passes and Susie sees that her family is healing, which Susie refers to as, quote, the lovely bones, unquote, that grew around her absence. Susie finally enters heaven, telling the audience, quote, my name is Solomon, like the fish, first name Susie. I was 14 years old when I was homicided on December 6th of 1973. I was here for a moment and then I was gone. I wish you all a long and happy life, unquote. So hopefully I didn't spoil it for you guys, but it's a really good movie. I haven't read the book. They're saying the book is amazing. Sad story,
Is a
but
lawful
good.
is a law enforcement officer who enters or attempts to enter a
Good
residence
morning,
in the
Norma.
performance
Good
of his
morning,
or her
Kim.
official duties, and the officer identified himself or herself in accordance with any applicable law, or the person
know.
using the force knew or reasonably should have known that the person entering or attempting
Right,
to
Bandy?
enter was a law
Yeah.
enforcement officer. A person who unlawfully and by
Mark,
force
that's-
enters or attempts to enter another residence is presumed to be doing so with the intent
We were
to commit
talking about the
an
movie The
unlawful act,
Lovely
force,
Bones,
or
because
violence.
Lovely Bones
Dwelling
is in
means the
chat,
building or conveyance of any
and
kind,
that
including an
there's a
attached
book
porch,
also,
whether
but
the
that's
building or
basically the
conveyance
plot
temporary
of
or
the
permanent
story, The
or
Lovely
mobile or
Bones. If you
immobile,
haven't seen the
which has a
movie,
roof
it's like
over it,
really
including a
long, but
tent,
it's a
and is
really
designed to
good
be
movie.
occupied by people lodging
The
there
girl,
at
she
night.
gets
Residence means
homicided by a
dwelling in which
pedophile,
person resides, either
and
temporarily or permanently, or is visiting as an
basically,
invited guest.
and you can't
Vehicle means
really,
a
you don't
conveyance of
know
any
that
kind, whether or
through
not
the movie,
motorized,
but
which
like
is
you can
designed to
connect the
transport
dots
people or
and
property.
figure it out. I
If you
think the
find the
book
defendant
might go into more
who, because
detail,
of prior
but the
threats
movie's
or
really, really
difficulties
good.
with
Like if you
Pedro
haven't seen
Jimenez,
it, you should
had
definitely
reasonable grounds
watch
to
it. It's
believe that she
real
was in
good.
danger of death or great bodily
It
harm
is,
at the
isn't
hands
it?
of
Good to
Pedro
see you,
Jimenez.
Angela.
You may consider this fact in determining whether the actions of the defendant were those of a reasonable person. On page 11, in considering the issue of self-defense or defense of others, you may take into account the relative physical abilities and capacities of the defendant and Pedro Jimenez. Parental rights. This court has taken judicial notice that there are no court records in
Of
Miami-Dade
course,
County
lovely.
terminating the parental rights of Pedro Jimenez. Instruction on edited recording. You heard a video recording. The court instructed you that the recording had been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions that would not add to your understanding of the case. The fact that the recording had been edited should not concern you in any way and must not impact the way you view and listen to and consider this evidence. Transcripts of recordings. During this trial, you heard a recording and you are now being furnished transcripts of the recording. The recording is the evidence and the transcripts are provided to you only as a guide to help you follow as you listen to the recording. Transcripts are not evidence of what was actually said or who said it. If you notice any difference between what you hear on the recording and what you read in the transcripts, you must rely on what you hear and not on what you read.
Oh my God, Abellis.
The presumption stays with the defendant as to each
That's
material
crazy.
allegation and the information through each stage of the trial, unless it has been overcome by the evidence to the exclusion of and beyond a reasonable doubt. To overcome the defendant's presumption of innocence, the state has the burden of proving the crime with which the defendant is charged was committed, and the defendant is the person who committed the crime. Whenever the words reasonable doubt are used, must consider the following. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. Such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. On the other hand, if after carefully considering, comparing, and weighing all the evidence, there is not an abiding conviction of guilt, or having a conviction, it is one which is not stable, but one which wavers and vacillates, and the charge is not proved beyond every reasonable doubt, and you must find the defendant not guilty because the doubt is reasonable. It is to the evidence introduced in this trial and to it alone that you are to look for that proof. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant may arise from the evidence, conflict in the evidence, or lack of evidence. If you have a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty. If you have no reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. Page 13, weighing the evidence. It is up to you to decide what evidence is reliable. You should use your common sense in deciding which is the best evidence and which evidence you should not be relied upon in considering your verdict. You may find some of the evidence not reliable or less reliable than others. You should consider how the witnesses acted as well as what they said. Some things you should consider are, did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? Does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in the case? Has the witness been offered or received any money, preferred treatment, or other benefit to get the witness to testify? Had any pressure or threat be used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? Did the witness at some time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? Whether the state has met its burden of proof does not depend upon the number of witnesses it has called or upon the number of exhibits it has offered, but instead upon the nature and quality of the evidence presented. The fact that a witness is employed in law enforcement does not mean that his or her testimony deserves more or less consideration than that of any other witness. Expert witnesses are like other witnesses, with one exception. The law permits an expert witness to give his or her opinion. However, an expert's opinion is reliable only when given on a subject about which you believe him or her to be an expert. Like other witnesses, you may believe or disbelieve all or any part of the expert's testimony. You have heard the testimony of a child. No witness is disqualified just because of age. There is no precise age that determines whether a witness may testify. The critical consideration is not the witness's age, but whether the witness understands the difference between what is true and what is not true, and understands the duty to tell the truth. The defendant in this case has become a witness. You should apply the same rules to consideration of her testimony that you apply to the testimony of other witnesses. It is entirely proper for a lawyer to talk to a witness about the testimony of what the witness would give if called to the courtroom. The witness should not be discredited by talking to a lawyer about his or her testimony. You may rely upon your own conclusion about the credibility of any witness. A juror may believe or disbelieve all or any part of the evidence or testimony of any witness. Defendant's statements. Statements claimed to be made by the defendant outside of court have been placed before you. Such statements should always be considered with caution and be weighed with great care to make certain they were freely and voluntarily made. Therefore, you must determine from the evidence that the defendant's alleged statements were knowingly, voluntarily, and freely made. In making this determination, you should consider the total circumstances, including but not limited to whether the defendant made the statements, she had been threatened in order to get her to make them, and whether anyone had promised her anything in order to get her to make them. If you conclude the defendant's out-of-court statements were not freely and voluntarily made, you should disregard them. Rules for deliberation. These are some general rules that apply to your discussion. You must follow these rules in order to return a lawful verdict. You must follow the law as it is set out in these instructions. If you fail to follow the law, your verdict will be a miscarriage of justice, and there is no reason for failing to follow the law in this case. All of us are depending upon you to make a wise and legal decision in this matter. This case must be decided only upon the evidence that you have heard from the testimony of the witnesses and have seen in the form of exhibits and evidence and these instructions. This case must not be decided for or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry at anyone. And the lawyers are not on trial. Your feelings about them should not influence your decision in this case. Your duty is to determine if the defendant has been proved guilty or not in accord with the law. It is the judge's job to determine a proper sentence if the defendant is found guilty. Whatever verdict you render must be unanimous. That is, each juror must agree to the same verdict. Your verdict should not be influenced by feelings of prejudice, bias, or sympathy. Your verdict must be based on the evidence and the law contained in these instructions. And deciding a verdict is exclusively your job. I cannot participate in that decision in any way, so please disregard anything I may have said or done that made you think I preferred one verdict over another. Page 18, verdict. You may find the defendant guilty as charged in the information or guilty of such lesser included crime as the evidence may justify, or not guilty. If you return a verdict of guilty, it should be for the highest offense which has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. If you find that no offense has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then of course your verdict must be not guilty. Only one verdict may be returned to the crime charged. The verdict must be in writing, and for your convenience, the necessary forms of verdict have been prepared for you, and they are as follows. It's pretty simple. Page 2 is the date and the jury foreman. You don't have a copy of this, but I'll hold it up. So it's really a one-pager. You have 3 choices: not guilty, guilty of manslaughter as a lesser included offense, or guilty of second-degree murder. If you find Ms. Link guilty of any of the crimes, there are interrogatory findings regarding the firearm. So you have to make a finding for the manslaughter. If she actually used the firearm, yes or no are your options. Similar options for second-degree murder. You have the options of whether or not she...
Hey, Bethina, good to see you, love.
Charge the firearm
What's
during the
happened?
commission of the
Okay.
offense. Then you go to number 3. Did she discharge the firearm causing death during the commission of the crime? It's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, Cindy.
And as I said earlier, the lawyers will have an opportunity to make their closing arguments to you. The state gets to go first. And for the state, we have,
May I please report?
yes.
Counsel.
We got closing now?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Oh, yep.
on June 25th, 2022, Pedro Jimenez was murdered. He was murdered by his 9-year relationship, his spouse, his wife, his defendant, Daisy Link. Earlier that
Oh, come on. Y'all better fix this
he
audio.
went over there and was there for a very long time. And that made Miss Link angry. He wasn't home. He wasn't spending time with her or his children. He was with friends. He's a trucker. He's never home. Why aren't you spending time with me? Her mother's there. Her children are home. Her mother flew in for a barbecue. Why aren't you spending time with me? And so what does she tell her mother? I'm going to go pick this idiot up. He's probably drunk off his ass. And she goes. She's not afraid. She goes there, unafraid, uninvited. And she waits outside, and minutes pass. And she asks Pedro, "Where are you?" And he doesn't respond. And so she goes inside to look for him, unafraid, not scared, uninvited. And she sees him, and he says, I'm coming. And she pulls him out of the house and takes him home. Their home. Not her home, but their home. And then they go and get beer. And they continue acting like a family, a toxic family. No doubt about that. We were the first ones to tell you it was a toxic family. We're the first ones to speak. We're the last ones to speak. It is our burden. But we were very upfront with you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This is a toxic relationship. 2 people that should have never been together. Ms. Link said Pedro Jimenez was a good guy. I disagree. I don't think he was a good guy. But he didn't deserve to be murdered that day. And so they fight. Why? Because Pedro has his suspicions. He accuses her of cheating. He's never home. This is his wife of 9 years. And he accuses her of cheating. And she denies it. And they continue fighting. And then he backs off. And he accuses her again. And they fight about that. And then he backs off. And they continue fighting. Over and over again. Until Pedro gives up and leaves. Miss Link already had the gun at that point. And she goes outside to smoke her cigarette. And Pedro comes home. And she sees him. And she says, you know what? I'm done with this. You're never home. You're not around our kids. My mom's here for a barbecue. Which, mind you, happened earlier that day that he missed. You know what? You're right. I did cheat on you. And what does Pedro say? She's holding the gun at that point. He says, as she's pointing the gun at him, do it. Do it then. I want to die. I gave you everything. His voice drops and he turns and starts walking away. And then he realizes, as the gun is pointing at him, that Miss Link is serious this time. We heard that they were a toxic relationship. He hit her just like she hit him. And he started to run. And she fired. And it went through his foot in an upward manner, through his thigh, hitting his ephemeral artery. Pedro had cocaine in his system, yes. He had alcohol in his system, yes. He had marijuana in his system, yes. But we heard from Dr. Mathis that coke actually kept him alive. He would have died faster. And so what does Daisy do? She mocks him, belittles him. It's not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. A couple seconds pass. As he's running away, fleeing from her, he's the one in fear. You sure you don't want to go to hospital? No, okay. And then she tosses the gun. She goes back to where she shot, and she picked up the casing that was never found.
Objection, fact not in evidence.
So this is argument of what the lawyers believe evidence showed you. You should
Hold on, my headphone was dying. Sorry, y'all.
rely on your memory of what the evidence was.
The coke kept
can
him
continue.
alive longer? Like what?
And then Daisy realizes, wait, my neighbors heard that gunshot. Let me go see where Pedro is. And she goes looking for him. And she doesn't call 911. And she finds him. And he's laying on the ground. He had been running, hiding in bushes, scared. And she finds him. And what does she do? She goes up to his body as he lies there dying, begging for help, asking her, pleading her, call 911.
Objection, facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
And she goes through his pockets, takes his phone, takes his identification, and walks back to the car. And she hides that stuff because she doesn't want anyone to know who he is. Because if they find out who he is, they'll figure out she was the shooter. And so finally she walks back and starts rendering aid because she realizes what's about to happen. He's about to die. And so that is the time that she calls 911. And she lies to the 911 operator. She says, I have no idea who this person is, despite being married to him for 9 years. I don't know what his date of birth is. I don't know how old he is, despite being married for 9 years. I just found this random man. I was walking around in the alley, despite being married to this man for 9 years. Officers arrive, and she asks, Pedro, what happened? What the fuck happened? She knew, and she lied, and she lied, and she lied. Officers were kind to her. They let her go back to the home. This is a spouse. She's scared. They didn't know what was going on at that time until Detective Danny Morales shows up. Seasoned homicide detective. And he sees a woman in the middle of the area. He doesn't know who she is, and he approaches her, and she becomes aggressive. In fact, that night she threw a chair at him. And so he detains her, and as he detains her, as he pats her down, trying to calm her down, trying to get a hold of the situation, she starts hiding the keys in her pocket, the keys of that same Chevrolet Trax with Pedro's stuff in it that would identify him, that would link her to this crime. Eventually, they bring her to the homicide headquarters. She never denies that they lived together, never denies that he lived there, never denies their relationship. Changes her story over and over and over again.
Hey,
Listen to
Brenda,
it, it's
good
an
to
hour
see
and
you,
a
love.
half long. An hour and a half of changing statements, of changing stories, giving more detail, taking that detail back. We gave you a transcript as well. Read it over. She changes her story over and over and over again. Officers find a firearm, that same firearm that belongs to her. The same firearm that she used to kill Pedro. And that night they arrest her, but that's not where their investigation ends, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. They continue investigating. They find surveillance video that disproves what Daisy Link was saying, that shows Pedro fleeing, hiding, in fear. And they take it back and they try to download it. And because of the program, when it gets plugged back in, it gets deleted. And that's a shame. But it wasn't deleted on purpose. We heard the steps that they took to preserve that evidence. And old technology is old technology. But this defendant murdered Pedro Jimenez that night. So as we heard jury instructions read to you earlier, there are some rules of deliberation about how you should weigh the evidence in this case. And I want to walk through these 8 rules with you all and talk about the state's witnesses first and how you should weigh this evidence. Number 1, did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? Yes. Every single state witness was personally involved in this case or was there the night of the murder, investigated the case, talked about what they did. Each and every state witness didn't say, well, I wasn't there, I don't know what was going on. Everyone was there. Every state witness testified to that. Kevin Bonilla was at the house when Daisy showed up and walked inside to go pick Pedro up. All the detectives were on scene. Canine officers who found firearm. Everyone there saw and testified to what they did. Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Yes, they did. It's 3 years ago, sure. But they remembered what they did. They remembered their investigations. Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? Yes. This is a trial. There are objections. Some are sustained, some are overruled. Absolutely. But not a single state witness gave a sarcastic comment. Not a single state witness argued. Everyone was very candid with what they did, what they didn't, what they remembered, and they were honest and straightforward the entire time. Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? No. 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 Does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in this case? Absolutely it does. And we'll walk through the evidence in a few moments, but absolutely it does. Each step officers took agreed with the next step. They talked about how homicide teams work in teams, that there is a lead. That lead gives assignments. The blood trail is consistent with the video that Mr. Cisneros saw, that Detective Morales saw, that Detective Hubbard saw. It's all consistent. Has the witness been offered or received any money for treatment or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify? No. We heard nothing of that. Nothing. Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? No. We heard nothing of that. Did the witness at some other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? Not really, no. They weren't handed a deposition transcript saying, didn't you say this a couple of years ago? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when you're viewing the state's evidence, use these rules. When you're thinking about the state's witnesses, use these rules. Importantly, as we heard, as I talked about, as we have all talked about, my burden in this case, I have to prove this case to you. It is my job and my job alone to prove this case. My burden is a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. That is my burden. Just like we talked about in jury selection. If it's wet outside and we heard thunder and it's wet for miles and miles and miles, it is reasonable to believe that it rained. It is not reasonable. We have to imagine, speculate, force ourselves. Pretend that a fire truck came and sprayed it for miles and miles and miles. That doesn't happen. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant may arise from evidence, conflict of the evidence, or lack thereof evidence. And that's a really important point. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, as the judge read, as you have in your hands, second-degree murder, and we talked about this in a little bit during jury selection. What do I actually have to prove? What are the elements of second-degree murder? Number one, Pedro Jimenez is dead. Number two, the death was caused by the criminal act of Deja Link. And number three, there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. An act includes a series of related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design and purpose. An act is imminently dangerous and demonstrating a deprived mind if it is an act or series of acts that a person of ordinary judgment would know is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily injury to another, is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or evil intent, and is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. And importantly, I do not have to prove intent that she wanted to kill him that night. If it meets those three elements, in order to convict of a second-degree murder, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had the intent to cause death. Merely these three elements. So let's talk about these three elements and how the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt these three elements. The first, as you heard, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there is a stipulation in this case. Pedro Jimenez is dead. There is no disagreement there, and you must take that as true. So the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the first element. We're a third of the way there already. 2 and 3, the death was caused by the criminal act of Daisy Link, and there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. I'm going to take these two together. I think it's important to talk about these two together. And importantly, we talk about it. There was a lot of testimony about what the timeline is, when they found a gun, when they didn't find a gun, when Daisy admitted to the crime. The timeline is really important. June 25th at 3:06 a.m., a Ring video starts recording. At 3:11, a gunshot is heard. Daisy tells Pedro, "It's not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine." Couple beats. "You sure you don't want to go to a hospital?" "No, okay." No fear, no adrenaline like she testified to, nothing. Calm as a cucumber. If you pay attention closely to the right-hand side, you actually see Pedro fleeing. Adrenaline, fear. Nothing. Cavalier attitude. Anger, hatred. Pissed off as hell. Not adrenaline, calm. And discuss Pedro's statement before she shoots. Do it, do it. I want to die. I gave you everything. That is a man who is broken by his wife of 9 years. It is not him charging at her. It is not him screaming at her. This isn't an assisted suicide. This is, you're pointing a gun at me. Nobody says, do it, I want to die while there's a gun below you, hanging off the side. This is a man who has a gun in his face, steps away from this defendant. Do it then, do it. I want to die. I gave you everything. You broke my heart. You just told me you're cheating on me. This is a toxic relationship with domestic violence going back and forth. And you know what Miss Link did? She lit a match and lit that fire that night because she wanted this relationship to be over. And this was the best way to do it. This was a broken man. Maybe a drug addict, never home, not really seeing his kids all that much. A broken man. He just found out that his wife was confirming his suspicions the entire time. 3:21, 10 minutes pass. Daisy Link calls 911 and lies about who he is, who she is, everything else.
Today, June 25, 2022, 03:21 and 57 seconds.
I identified the fire with the emergency. I don't know why I do here. About freaking. Okay, Donald, I want you to track the phone to see where you are.
Hey, Lori.
Do you know what happened to him?
I have no idea. He's bleeding everywhere.
Is he awake and breathing? And let's place you at 1300. 18 highway down. Where? Are you in Homestead now? Yes. What is the phone number you're calling from? 136. 52. 9656095939. So that you get home police 111 fire is already from.
Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. 3:27, 6 minutes. 6 minutes after she calls 911, Officer Nicholson arrives first on scene, and she lies to him. And what does she say to Pedro, despite knowing exactly what happened? Pedro, what the fuck happened? She knows. She shot him. She pointed the gun at him and discharged it as he ran away. What the fuck happened, Pedro? I shot you is what the fuck happened. Officer Nicholson asked, Pedro, what happened? And she says, if you listen closely, I hit a major artery. Listen to it carefully. This is his body-worn camera. She says, I hit a major artery. That's an admission, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. She shot and fired. And it links up directly to her statement earlier, where she mocked him. It's not like I hit a major artery. She knew what she was doing. She was aiming that gun on purpose. This is not a ricochet. It didn't hit the ground, bounce up. She shot it at him as he fled. We actually see Pedro Jimenez's last breaths ever. We watch him die. his last moments on earth. His wife pretends he didn't know that she murdered. Victim pronounced deceased at 3:40 a.m. Officer Rodriguez speaks to the defendant, who again lies to him. He left in a van. I don't know who his friends are, despite going there earlier in the day and picking him up. The van that officers wasted precious time searching for. She sent them on a wild goose chase. Later on, homicide detectives arrive. 5:40. 6:30. Daisy's sister shows up and says, "Oh, if he's dead, Daisy did it." She knew. She knew. Because she knew that it was a toxic relationship. She knew that Daisy hit Pedro and Pedro hit Daisy. That Daisy was going to light a match eventually. She knew. Between 6:50 and 8:30, Detective Cruz canvases the scene of Pedro's murder. They walk the scene, they take photographs, they try to figure out piece by piece what's going on. They don't find a gun. 9:20 a.m. when the defendant enters the room. Look how aggressive she is. I'm not putting that shit on. Covered in blood. Angry.
If there's no one on the person, I gotta see for that on TV.
I'm not putting that shit on. She even goes on to say at 3:52 in that hour and a half video that you have in evidence, why are you treating me like I did this? Why are you taking pictures of me like I did it to him? She says at 4:08, the bruises are from a car accident, which she confirmed, by the way, on the stand when I was cross-examining her yesterday. She says the bruises don't apply to this, trying to make it seem like he would hit me. Lie after lie after lie after lie. At 12:27, canines locate a firearm. I'm sorry. At 12:27, a residential search warrant is executed for Daisy and Pedro's home. And what do they find, ladies and gentlemen? Look closely. Men's shoes, men's clothing, adult men's clothing. Pedro lived there. It was his home. Same time, canines locate a hidden firearm. Hidden firearm. That was about the only honest thing she said that night, that she hid that gun. And it was her gun. And it's not until 3:39, 4:20 that the defendant begins her hearing. We know that, not just because we heard it and we can see it on video. The time of when she waived her Miranda rights and chose to speak to officers is actually memorialized on that Miranda form itself. You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to talk to me if you do not wish to. You don't have to answer any of my questions. Do you understand that right? Yes. Should you talk to me, anything which you say may be introduced into evidence against you. Do you understand? Yes. If you want a lawyer to be present during questioning at this time or any time hereafter, you are entitled to have a lawyer present. Then, yes, you cannot afford to pay for a lawyer, one will be provided for you at no cost if you want. You understand that right? Yes. And then she waives. She voluntarily spoke to them. Says a lot of very interesting things during this statement. But I think what's most interesting here is her demeanor during this. She's crying, she's sad, she's scared. until she's confronted with one of her lies. And you can actually see her demeanor change. She's not scared anymore. She's mad. You see her demeanor change when officers catch her in a lie. What if I have you on video saying, it's not like I hit a major artery, you'll be fine? Her change in demeanor is important here. What else does she tell us? I was angry. Doesn't say I was scared. Not talking about something that happened 5 days ago. I was angry. What did she say about the shooting? One of the 5 different stories she tells that night, and yesterday as well.
It was down, and then once he said, "Oh, you're gonna sleep outside tonight, bitch," that's when I used to spit it up, and I just cocked it, and I shot it, it was every cock and everything. I shot it.
Catch that? It was already cocked. He says, you're sleeping outside. I lifted it and I shot. It was already cocked. She was outside, not scared. Her with the deadly weapon. We know Pedro never had the gun. We know he never had a weapon. She said as much. At 5:03, when she tells officers where the firearm is. 5 hours prior, though, K9 already had located it. She wasn't being helpful. They already found it. They were already piecing the picture together. As she's being interviewed, they're doing their work. They find this ring camera. They find the firearm. They're doing their job. They're watching video. The defendant is eventually arrested that day, and then on June 26th, a secondary canvass is conducted with other K9 officers. They don't find him. They don't find the casing that Daisy Link hit, because she didn't want to get caught. We also know, based off the subsequent search, Pedro's path that night. Well, let's talk about this. We heard not from 1, not from 2, not from 3, but 4 officers about that video footage at Robert Cisneros' house. We heard from Robert Cisneros himself. It's an older model DVR. It's plugged in, it's hardwired. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw the victim running, hiding behind bushes, running and then collapsing. A woman passing by, going to his body, manipulating his body, walking away, coming back. We actually can piece together his path based off the evidence. The CSI photos, the blood spatter. We know that Daisy's house is where he got shot. I'm sorry, Daisy's house. This is the porch. What's important is those 2 doors. He said that he was charging at her while she was on the floor. Where? How? That's what she tells us. And after he gets shot, he runs this way. We know that from the blood spatter. Daisy walks this way. You'll be fine. Not like I want to be. Not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. And he continues running. And we actually see that in that same video. And blood spatter continues. We know, again, that he travels up through the alley until he gets to this car. Blood spatter again, before collapsing and dying. Right? And look at where the Chevy tracks is. Look how far away it is. Daisy would have had to have walked feet after feet after feet to get to him and hide his stuff back in the car. It took her time. It was deliberate action she was taking because she didn't want to get caught. And we can also piece together Daisy's path that night as well. This is their home. She shoots and fires. He's running away from her. She goes this way, the trampoline. She says, not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. He Eat, eat, eat. You sure you don't want to go to the hospital? You'll be fine, okay. And then she comes back and she hides the firearm, her firearm. She has to come back, get in her car, and drive. And she waits. She doesn't call 911. There was just a gunshot. She knows she hit him. She doesn't think she hit him where she hit him, but she knows she hit him. And so she goes to look for her husband of 9 years. She's not afraid of him. She's not scared of him. She's not thinking about an incident that occurred 5 days prior. This is a toxic relationship, and she just lit the fuse. I cheated on you. You're right. You're never home. So she says, my husband of 9 years, I just shot. Let me go find him. You can't take back a murder. Her rendering aid, attempting to render aid, lying officers. Lying officers are relevant. Rendering aid is hero. You can't take back a murder. She goes, and she goes this way, up and back. We know she doesn't go this way. There's a car lot. You know, it's not this way. It's her car, and it's over here. And it's important. She goes this way, up, and she walks over to Pedro's body, turns her car off, and takes his items out of his pocket. His phone, his money, his keys. She goes back and starts rendering aid. It took her time. These are deliberate steps that she took. The shot itself. He was running away. His foot out through his ankle, and then through his thigh. In, out, in, out. It was a clean shot. It was a good shot. The only way that shot makes sense with one shot, from what we heard from Dr. Mathis, is when somebody is running away. That's the trajectory that it took. That is the only way that that is possible. And if it missed the foot, it's still going through the thigh either way. It's still hitting that artery either way. This didn't bounce off the floor through his foot, ricocheting, and then ending up in her thigh, or his thigh. It was a good shot. Again, we can see Dr. Mathis' work. Entry, exit, entry, exit, through the femoral artery. And how do we know that it was Daisy's gun? Pay attention. Pay very close attention. Earlier in the day, immediately after the shot, what's in her hand? The firearm she hid. She got that gun. It was her gun. How do we know it's her gun? Well, we heard from criminalists from the Miami-Dade Crime Lab that they tested it for DNA. And the majority of that DNA belonged to none other than the defendant, Daisy Link. And how do we know that? The statistic they came up with. 1 in 28.71 septillion that it is her DNA. Septillion is 24 zeros. That's not a small number. The population of Earth is 8 billion. That's 24 zeros. It's her gun. Talk about reasonable doubt again. And this is so important because I'm about to talk about the defense witnesses. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the evidence of the defendant may arise from the evidence, conflict of evidence, or lack of evidence. And what's important here, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's actually no reasonable doubt for the state's evidence. But when you look at conflicts of the evidence, you should also take a look at the evidence that the defense presented. And to be clear, they don't have to do a single thing. Her attorney never has to open his mouth. I'm the only one that has to do anything. But they gave us interesting evidence, interesting testimony. And you weigh that evidence, that testimony, the same way you weigh the state's evidence. Did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified to? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We heard from her niece, Lynn, who lives in Texas, who flew to Florida 4 days prior. And what did she do? Well, I went to my aunt Crystal's house and we hung out. And then there was a barbecue a couple days later. And I saw some injuries to Daisy, but I can't tell you where those injuries are from. I don't know what day it was taken. I wasn't there the night that he was killed. Wasn't there when he got shot. She wasn't there. We heard from Crystal. Same thing. Same thing. And she even admitted she didn't know if Pedro lived there or not. Crystal pretended like she knew. Excuse me, Lynn pretended like she knew, but she was challenged on that. You're not coming in to Florida often. You live in Texas. You don't know. It's entirely reasonable to believe that when Pedro comes home, your aunt's not telling you, hey, my husband's home. She has no idea. Her mother testified as well. She left. They said it was such a dangerous situation, she left her grandchildren with such a dangerous man. She watched her daughter get choked, nearly murdered in front of her, and she leaves? It's one thing to say, I can't control this 30-year-old person. If they want to do what they want to do, they're going to do it. It's an entirely different thing, though, to leave an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old in that situation. Because it didn't happen. Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? No. Crystal denied making a statement to Detective Morales, but then challenged. She goes, well, actually, they're confrontational. I think Crystal even said, how would I know I'm not saying? Did the witness seem honest and straightforward in answering the questions? Absolutely not. Same thing. Crystal said, I'm not a psychic. How would I know? Well, it's your sister, right? Shouldn't you know about her abusive husband? You know about the toxic relationship. You know she hits him and he hits her. But you're not a psychic. You can't put one and one together. You know your sister has a gun. I just showed you it's her gun. Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? Does the witness testimony agree with the other testimony, other evidence in this case? Has the witness been offered or received any money for fear treatment or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify? Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the witness's testimony? Let's talk about Pedro Jr. for a second. And his testimony being so critical. What did he tell us? I'm here to get my mom out of jail. Here to get my mom out of jail. I live with my grandma. I talk to her at least about this case. I make it up. I forget. What happens? Sometimes I say daddy shot twice 5 days before, but no, grandma who wasn't there, mind you, corrects me. If they're willing to coach a child on what to say, it is very reasonable to believe that they have been coordinating their testimony to. They weren't there, they don't know. And a child has admitted. Children are pretty honest. And honestly, Pedro Jr. seems like a great kid. Really honest. He said, when I make a mistake about the night that my grandma wasn't there, she tells me what happened. Wasn't there. How does she know? Did the witness at some other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? Absolutely. How many times did they get impeached with their own depositions? Let's talk about the lease agreement. Now, this is an older one. And I want to bring to your attention 3 major things here. Tenant's email address, pete89.pj@gmail.com. Phone numbers, Copyright my copy. My copy, not original. Not that, not file one, my copy. And then right here, where it says Daisy Lane, pay very close attention to this line. What does that look like? That looks like whiteout. My copy. And as you make it out, you can actually kind of see Pedro Jimenez's name right underneath it. But that's consistent with being whited out on her copy, not the original, her copy. Let's talk about the newest lease as well, Defense Exhibit D. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Pedro's name's not on here. You know it's also not on here? Any signatures? How do we know? This wasn't updated. There's no initialing. There is no signatures, no dates, no times. How do we know? Let's talk about earlier in the night. They said the toxic family, toxic evil man. I'm sorry, actually, let me back up. Daisy pretended he was a good guy. That's what she said. He was a good guy. Not the family, though. They came to rescue her, but they waited for days. They were there, they were in a barbecue. They flew in the middle of the night. They looked their grandchildren. So Daisy picked Pedro up on her own volition, mind you. Pedro holding a beer. Who shows up? His children, her children, their family. They are a family. No fear. Not getting scared. They are a family. Even later, the victim returns to the car. Probably left some stuff in it. After all, he rented that vehicle. Who walks back to the car with Pedro and Daisy? I showed you this a few minutes ago. Pay attention to what's in Daisy's hand. A gun. That same gun. Her gun. Daisy told us an interesting lie yesterday, and her mother did too. That was completely refuted by actual evidence. They said that Pedro punched through a wall and opened this door. Well, good thing we have photographs. Tell me where the broken window is. Even if he punched through that. Look, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I don't believe in superheroes. I don't think Pedro is Mr. Elastic. He can't open that door from there. There's no broken window. There's no punch window. That didn't happen either. Lie after lie after lie after lie. Another really important thing. Let's talk about what happened 5 days prior. I believe something happened. Hell, we have pictures. I absolutely believe something happened. But not what Daisy said. Pedro Jr. was coached on what to say. How do we know that? Well, Daisy actually told us. She has cameras. They record things. That would have happened on or about the 20th or 21st. And what's really interesting here is the conveniences. It is really convenient. We have the 18th. We have the 22nd. And then the night of the murder. This is from her phone. Isn't it convenient how that video doesn't exist? Isn't it convenient? What actually happened that night, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Actually happened that
That's what.
That's what happened. She was mad as fuck. Pedro's never home. On the road all the time. Off getting high. I was mad as fuck. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the death was caused by the criminal act of Daisy Link. She pointed the gun that we already pointed at and we made those statements. So he fled, he ran, she fired. She actually made a very surprising omission yesterday when she said that she didn't think she was going to hit him. She pointed and fired with purpose. That yesterday, contradicted by her own statement, which is full of its own contradictions over and over and over again. I didn't think it was going to hit. It is proving beyond reasonable doubt. Element 2. Element 3. There was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. Pointing a firearm and shooting it is imminently dangerous. Deprived mind, I don't know what's more deprived than after you shot someone, mocking them. You'll be fine. Not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. After breaking this man's heart and lighting that fuse. Talk about Western. Oh, let me back up. After the state has proven element 1, element 2, and element 3, state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of second-degree murder. As you heard, there are lesser included offenses in this case. Lesser included offenses are offenses that make up the actual charge, but they're smaller. There's less there. And as you heard, in this case, it's manslaughter. What do we have to prove for manslaughter? That Pedro Jimenez is dead. That we all agree. You have to take that as true. We all agree. 2, Daisy Link intentionally committed an act or acts that caused the death of Pedro Jimenez. She lifted the gun. She pulled the trigger as he ran. As an act, caused the death. We heard Dr. Mathis say, cause of death, manner of death, homicide, gunshot wound. Daisy Link did that. I've already proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this is a second-degree murder. But I've also proven manslaughter as well. Aggravation of a firearm by aggravation of a felony by carrying a firearm. This is important too because you will have a verdict form that you will have to make certain decisions on. If I've proven my case, you must make the determination beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link actually possessed the firearm during the commission of the crime. She's admitted that. Whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link discharged the firearm, she's admitted that. Whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link discharged the firearm and in doing so caused death or great bodily harm to Pedro Jimenez. He's dead. Proven that. This is really important too. Justifiable use of deadly force. Self-defense. That's what this case is. That's the defense that they have put on. The defendant was justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or the imminent commission of burglary to a dwelling or false imprisonment against herself. I'm not going to talk about those because there's no evidence of those. But let's talk about imminent for a second. I had a conversation with Mr. Cruz during jury selection. I threatened him, remember? We were at Publix in the line. I cut him. He said some words to me. I said, I'll see you outside. I lifted my shirt. I showed him my gun. Imminent. It is happening right there, right then. Not 5 days before, not hours before, right then, right there. There was a lawyer on the panel who mentioned a bus 200, 300, 400, whatever it was, feet away. And he said, that is imminent. No, it's not, because there can be an intervening cause. Car accident. Imminent, right away. As the judge showed you, your verdict form will look a little like this. I couldn't fit in the signature line for the foreperson in the data time, but this is what you'll get. This is something you'll get. And you're gonna have to make a decision here. Guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty. Well, again, I've proven my case beyond a reasonable doubt. So check off second-degree murder. And as we talked about already with the aggravation of a firearm, she did actually possess a firearm. She did discharge a firearm. And she did cause death. That's what your verdict form will look like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because there is only one verdict in this case that is consistent with the evidence, consistent with the facts of this case. And the only verdict that justice demands, and that's this defendant, Daisy Link, is guilty of second-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the defense.
Can we take a quick comfort break so I can get set up?
Sure. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to the jury room for a few minutes and we'll come back out and then we'll do the other closing.
All right, the jurors, once you step down, the jury room is on.
Okay.
Give them time that, tell the state how much time they will.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry for what y'all been
What?
through. Let's see what's on the news today while we wait. I'll keep this up in the background where I can see and hear it.
Okay. That's fine. You're keeping time.
So that we know
All right, folks, we'll be back in a few minutes.
when they come back. All right, I just found this, and remember yesterday that remember yesterday when you guys were asking me what Pedro Jr. was saying, and I couldn't catch part of it, but I tried to catch most of it. Well, Court TV got part of it. And so I saw this defendant and victim's son, quote, I asked him to stop hitting my mom. So we can watch this while we wait. They might be back before we get done with it.
Okay, let's head back now to Florida. We have been watching the toxic relationship murder trial. This is against Daisy Link. We just watched her testimony. It was about the day that she fatally shot her boyfriend, although she says this all took place, it was self-defense. On the stand now is the defendant and victim's son, Pedro Jr. He's a minor, so we are not showing his face as he testifies. He's going to be testifying via Zoom. Let's go back in and watch that.
Pedro, can you tell us your full name? Who was your father? Pedro Jimenez? And who is your mother? So, Pedro, I want to ask you about a couple of incidents that happened about 3 years ago.
So he's about to ask him about a couple of incidents that happened 3 years ago. I did type it in chat. I'm so sorry for what all of you have been through since we've been kind of talking and sidebarring while they were doing closing arguments. My heart goes out to you guys. Those are hard situations. I really feel like the prosecution spent almost an hour on closing arguments, specifically because he didn't get that. He has to prove the case. The defense doesn't have to prove their side. And with the judge not letting him prove much of the case, I felt like he was really going to try to knock it out of the park, so to speak, with that closing argument so he could try to get his conviction, because the judge seemed very biased in this case. Hey, Kalisa, good to see you. We are strong survivors. We are warriors. Oh, you're good, Abellis. Take you a nap, sweetheart, if you need to.
Do you remember back in June of 2022, do you remember an incident where your mother got hurt? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. What can you tell me about that incident? What happened that night?
Dad was knocking on our door, and he changed the lock, and my mom went to go see who it was, and when she saw it was him, she didn't answer my door because she was mad,
So far, he said his dad was knocking on the door and her mom had changed the lock. His mom's had changed the locks, and then his mom went to go look and saw it was him and didn't let him in. So he said his mom did open, he didn't open the door. I can't tell if his mom opened the door or not, but somehow he gets in the house. He had a firearm in his back pocket. He fired a shot. When he missed, and then he started hitting his mom over, he started hitting Pedro's mom over and over and over again, and with the gun. Hey, Heather Ann. Oh, Heather Ann, sorry, I know you were here, and I'm sorry you're at work right now. Kalisa Kat's good to see you, love.
And my mom knocked it out of his hand, and David kicked it away from him. So.
And his mom smacked the firearm out of his dad's hand, and somebody took it away from him.
And David all the time said, against my mom and everybody out of the house.
So I think he said David took the firearm, and something happened. He said something between his mom and David, and then everybody went to get out of the house.
Okay, so I want to back up a little bit. You mentioned somebody named David. Can you tell me who David is?
David was
your mom's cousin. Your mom's cousin? And so David was at your mom's house that night? Is that yes?
Yeah.
Can you tell me who else besides your mom and you and David, was there anybody else in your mom's house that night?
Yeah.
Who?
David's kids.
How many kids did David have with him?
4.
So who else was at the house? David was at the house, and who else? And David's 4 kids that night.
4 kids? And what about your sister? Was she there too?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was you, your sister, David's kids, David, and your mom were at your mom's house, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, your dad showed up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at some point, you said that your dad was beating on your mom. Was he hitting her with something?
Yeah, he was hitting her with the gun.
So he said you said your dad was hitting your mom at some point, and he asked what was he hitting him with, and Pedro Jr. said he was hitting her with the firearm.
With what? Okay. Do you know how many times he hit her? At some point did he stop?
Okay. He said, do you know how many times he hit her? Pedro Jr. said like 5 times. And then the defense attorney asked him, do you know something? When did he stop? Oh my gosh. Why is it being stupid? Hold on. Lord have mercy. Hold on. I'm going to pull it back up. Lord have mercy. It decided to not let me have any control over the audio after that. I hate how it does that sometimes. Let me pull it back up for you guys. Hold on just a minute.
When your dad was hitting your mom, did you, at any point, did you say anything to him?
Yeah.
What did you say to your dad? You asked him to stop?
So he said, at any point when your dad was hitting your mom, did you tell him anything? And he said, yes, I asked him to stop.
All right. So on the other day where the police came to the house, do you remember that?
So now we're talking about the night of the homicide, the night the police came to the house.
And do you remember when it was that?
Judge, I'm gonna object.
Oh, I thought that was the other coming back in. Okay.
I'm sorry, buddy. You said but I just want to make sure. What you just said, was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember when the police were at the house, right? Do you remember when the police took your mom?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you remember about that, about them taking your mom?
So, me and my sister, I woke up to screaming.
Okay, so he asked, can you remember anything about the night that the police took your mom? He said, me and my sister woke up to screaming.
And I looked at my sister, and I told her, do you hear that? And she says, yeah.
He said he looked at his sister and said, do you hear that? She said, yeah.
So he told me to see what the noise was, and we see our mom, and then the police officers are putting her in handcuffs.
So they look out the window and they see their mom and that police are putting her in handcuffs.
And they're saying, my mom is saying, I didn't do anything wrong, and they're just
And their mom is saying, I didn't do anything wrong.
My old phone carrier was reaching.
And their mom was saying, I didn't do anything wrong. And then basically looked at the kids and said, they're going to take me away. Hold on, we're back. Hold on just a minute. She's just talking about jury instructions.
They're
again.
identical copies. I like for them to have their own copies. Does anyone have an objection to them taking back their own personal copies of the jury instructions?
No objection.
Really?
Okay, so can I bring them back in? Yeah, all right, let's bring them back in.
All right, they're going to bring the jury back in, and then we're going to hear the defense's closing arguments.
All right, for the jurors.
Hold on just a minute. I have the shirt that says that on the
All
back.
9 jurors are counted present for. We can be seated.
Says
Everyone
allegedly
seated,
speculating
defense
on the front,
lawyers,
and then hold on
states,
just a
defendant
minute
are present.
on
All
the
right,
back.
folks, before we go into Mr. Tomas's closing, page 9 of your instructions, you need to swap it out. There was a typo that I read the correct wording into the record, but because we're allowing you to take your own copies back with you, and I just so take out page 9, give it to Lisette. If you need a staple, I know this is getting very technical, if you need a staple or paper clip, let us know. All right, Lisette.
I don't know. It could be a trauma response type thing, like it was so traumatic, you know? Lorianne said it's called electric cure. Not fun either way with cost. Oh no. Miss Scorpio, thank you for gifting a membership. That was so sweet and supportive of you. I greatly appreciate that. Let's see who it went to. Thank you so much, Miss Scorpio. That was so sweet. Thank you for that. Sweet. That membership went to Ashley McNarma. I will grab the haunted train to come pick you up, Ashley, on the way to Speculation Station. If you are here and you are where you were gifted, please tell Miss Scorpio thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Scorpio. That was so sweet of you.
Okay, so looks like who has not swapped out page 9?
I love that. I like that clip. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you all
Miss
for your
Scorpio.
continued
It's so sweet of
attention.
you.
Now the defense will have an opportunity to give their closing argument.
Yay, Ashley. Hey, Psychic. Good to see you. If I missed anybody, good to see you and thank you for being
Good
here. Curious
afternoon, everyone.
Christine. Good to see you, love. I like the haunted train too. I think it's so cute.
So, as you already know, Miss Link is presumed innocent. You are required to presume that she is innocent. And that presumption is to stay with you throughout this trial until you go back there and deliberate. When you're back there deliberating, if you decide that the state has proven their case beyond all reasonable doubt, then that's another story. But she doesn't lose that presumption until you reach that decision, if you reach that decision. I don't know if you remember, because it's been a couple of weeks already, but during jury selection, there was a juror sitting in the back, in the corner. And we were talking about that example that I gave about the cat and the mouse and the hole in the box. Do you all remember that? Okay. There was this one juror, he was sitting in the back, and he said, I can't make a decision because I don't have enough information. Well, as I explained to him, the cat is presumed innocent. You're not convinced that the cat's guilty, right? No, I haven't been convinced. Okay, well then your decision is not guilty. He's presumed innocent. So your verdict, right? Your verdict is not guilty. If that changes, if you're convinced otherwise, then you change it. But if you're not, the verdict is not guilty. It's pretty simple. I would submit to you that right now, before I say another word, every single one of you should vote not guilty. I'll explain in a moment, but you should, because the state has not overcome the reasonable doubt in this case. Now remember, I will remind you, I don't have to prove that Miss Link was justified in pulling the trigger. They have to prove that she was not justified. And they haven't. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that the state said a moment ago. They said a lot. They said that Daisy was upset because Pedro wasn't home. There's no evidence of that. They just made that up. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. Point to one witness, one piece of evidence that establishes that. You won't find it because it hasn't been introduced. It's their burden to prove it. They want to say something, they want to allege something, they have to prove it. They can't just get up here, say it, and say, oh, you got to believe us because we're the state. Believe everything we say, believe nothing that the defense say. We're the good guys. Doesn't work that way. They have to prove it. Daisy's mother flew in for a barbecue? That's what he said. You know that's not true. And they didn't even have that barbecue. And yes, they were going to have a barbecue the next day. You heard why. Number one, because she lives in Texas and she has other family that she doesn't get to see, so she's going to see them. And number two, they don't want to make it obvious that Daisy's leaving because they don't want Pedro to flip, which he did anyways. But they don't want him to flip, so they're doing it in a way that he won't find out. That was the testimony. Have they rebuffed that testimony? Have they proven that it's not true? No, they haven't. The most that they've done is, well, maybe it's true, maybe it wasn't. Have they disproven it? They have not. Can you point to a single piece of evidence, to testimony, to anything that rebuffs that? You cannot, because it doesn't exist. The state mentioned about phone calls between Pedro and Daisy. Pedro didn't have a phone because he tossed it after he almost beat Daisy to death a few days before. And then he had to get another phone, and you heard testimony about that. When he went to his friend Kevin's house to do all that coke and to buy all that cocaine so he can have a party while he's driving a big rig across the state, snorting cocaine. He didn't have a phone. He didn't have a phone because he tossed the phone after he almost killed Daisy a few days before because he didn't want the police to track him. It wasn't evidence. She testified to it. I'm not making it up. I'm telling you what was in evidence. You can use your own recollection about what you heard, but we all know that that came out in evidence. I'm not making it up. The state has repeatedly said that was their home. No, it wasn't. They can't just say it and say, there, we proved it. They haven't proved it. This thing is really blurry. But for the future reference, this is Defense Exhibit A. It is 3 pages long. Pedro Jimenez had 2 driver's licenses. These driver licenses, both of them, can't see it here, but you can see it yourself when you go through the evidence. Both of them have his mother's address. You have seen lease agreements where he is not on the lease documents. You have heard testimony from multiple people, including his son, that said he didn't live there. But most importantly, this is Exhibit F, Defense Exhibit F. It's horrible. You can look at it when you're delivering. This is a court order. A court order. Now, the judge read the instructions, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the instruction that she read to you says. And I am talking about page 11 of the instructions, which you will all have with you in the back. Parental rights. The court has taken judicial notice that there are no court records in Miami-Dade terminating the parental rights of Pedro Jimenez. That is right. During my opening statement, I told you he lost his parental rights. I didn't say terminated. I said lost. When your parental rights are terminated, that means it's terminated. That means there's no coming back. They're gone. When you lose your parental rights, you can get it back. And this order provides a pathway for Pedro Jimenez to get his rights back. You know what that pathway is? First page, bottom. Substance abuse assessment, individual therapy, parenting therapy, domestic violence. Domestic violence. September 20th, 2019. Ever since September 20th, 2019, that man was limited to seeing his children by court order 1 time a month under the supervision of his mother, who you've heard doesn't even live in this state. And you've heard no evidence or any indication that she ever came back, because she didn't. And he gets to have FaceTime calls with the children at the sole discretion of the mother. The sole discretion of the mother. Do you think courts and judges limit a parent's ability to see their children flippantly and for no reason? They did it because Pedro Jimenez was a drug addict, a cocaine abuser, an alcohol abuser, and a wife-girlfriend abuser. And as you've heard throughout the course of this trial, he was doing nothing to get those rights back. He was doing the opposite. He was on his way to losing them permanently. Why? Because 5 days before he died, he beat Daisy Link halfway to death. Beat her halfway to death, smashed her skull in, did it in front of his 7-year-old son, did it in front of his 5-year-old daughter, did it in front of 4 other kids who were present. The state got up here and told you Pedro was not dangerous? Are you kidding me? Is that not the very definition of a dangerous man? He proved what he's capable of just 5 days before this happened. The state said a lot of things during their closing. I didn't agree with any of it except for 2 things. One thing that they acknowledged, Pedro was not a good guy. I agree. No, he wasn't a good guy. No, he was a cokehead, wife-beating lunatic. That's what he was. He terrorized and traumatized Daisy Link. He terrorized and traumatized his own children, and he terrorized and traumatized other children. This is a man that was capable of beating a woman halfway to death in front of children, in front of his own children. That's dangerous. Whether Daisy acted afraid of it or not doesn't change what he did. Whether Daisy made a flippant remark or made fun of him or insulted him doesn't change what he did. The state wants you to ignore and forget that he did that. Well, they can ask you to forget whatever, but you know what happened. This order Paragraph 3 of this order, Exhibit F, the minor children, Pedro Jimenez and Mia Jimenez, shall remain in the legal and physical custody of the mother, whose name is Daisy Link. Next paragraph, the non-custodial parent of Pedro Jimenez and Mia Jimenez is Pedro Jimenez. And then further down, Pedro Jimenez has not substantially complied with his case plan. A brief description of this plan is as follows: substance abuse treatment, assessment, individual therapy, parenting, domestic violence. He didn't do it then. He wasn't going to do it in 2022. And quite frankly, it's clear that he was never going to do it. He was less concerned with getting back his kids and having more time with his kids. He was more concerned with getting high and beating up Daisy Link. State will tell you that Pedro was broken, that Daisy did all these horrible things to you. They completely ignore what he did to her. And you can't ignore that because that goes to her state of mind. That goes to her state of mind right when she pulled the trigger. Yes, she went to pick him up. And I'll submit to you, that was a bad choice on her part. But you know what? Relationships are complicated. When 2 people love each other, even if it changes, it's complicated. When you add children to the mix, it's complicated. When you add property to the mix, it gets more complicated. When you add the fact that these kids, even though their dad's not a good guy, they love their dad. She knows that. So yes, she doesn't want to get him arrested. She doesn't want to get him deported. She doesn't want to do that. She just doesn't want to be with him anymore, and that's her right. And why would she want to be with him? He beats her up. He did so for almost the entire course of their relationship. And you need look no further than this order to know that. The state went on to say that Daisy Link picked up the casing, the spent casing in this case. There's no evidence of that, ladies and gentlemen. None whatsoever. They can say it till they're blue in the face. They have to prove it. It's their burden. And if they haven't proved it, which they haven't, then you can't accept it because it hasn't been proven. There's no evidence that she picked up any casing whatsoever. She was with police for almost an entire day from the point they got there at 3-something in the morning till she got to the station several hours later, till she started her 11-hour-long interrogation at what, 9? So she was done, what, the following evening? That's almost 24 hours. They had eyes on her the whole time. But they want you to believe that she found this casing and she got rid of it. Well, that doesn't jive with the evidence. There's no evidence of it. She told them where the gun was. She called 911. She tried to help this man as soon as she found him. And the only reason she didn't call 911 sooner is because Pedro stole her phone. The state said that the officers were kind to her. Are you kidding me? No, they weren't. They say that she threw a chair at Detective Morales. No, she didn't. There's no evidence of that. None whatsoever. There's 100 officers on there. All of them have body cams. Have you seen a single body cam of her throwing a chair at anybody? No, because she didn't. The state talked about Pedro Jr. They said one thing, and this is the other thing that I would agree with, that Pedro Jr. is a very smart boy. I agree. He is a very smart boy. Kids are honest. Yes, they are honest. And I would submit to you, Pedro Jr. was honest in his testimony. I specifically asked him, and he specifically said, I'm not telling you, nobody told me what to say. This is what I remember. Has he spoken to his grandmother in the last 3 years? Yes, because he lives with her. What's he supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? Because he speaks to his grandmother, therefore you shouldn't believe a word he says? You can judge that boy's credibility on your own. We have footage in this case which was deleted. It was lost while it was in police custody. The police only viewed one snippet, which is when Daisy Link went to Pedro while he was lying there. They didn't bother to look at anything else. They didn't bother to look at any other footage when he stole her purse or when he was running back and forth the 3, 4, 5 times that he was running back and forth, that Daisy's mother told him to leave, that Daisy told him to leave, where they threatened to call the police. There's none of that. It would have been on there, but they lost it. Nobody knows how. Everybody's saying, wasn't me, I don't know, we did everything. It must have been the machine. It wasn't the machine. They gave the machine back to the owner. It worked fine. The only difference is a month's worth of footage is gone. I didn't delete it. The police did. The police lost it. The police destroyed it. What does that mean? They have it in their control and they lose it. That is incompetence of the highest order. This is a murder case. That is incompetence, ladies and gentlemen. You should consider that. We have a blood trail here, which begins in front of the house. The state will have you believe that at the time Pedro was shot, he was running away. He wasn't running away. He was running to the house. He was going to barricade himself inside that house where those kids were. He was going to keep her out, and he was going to do God knows what. I say God knows what because we already know what he did 5 days before. We already know that he snorted snorted about a mountain of cocaine shortly before this happened. That was her home, which she has a right to defend. Pedro did not have an invitation or a right to be in that home. He made it clear that he was going to break into that home and lock her out and keep her away from her children, which he had no right to do. And importantly, she has every right to use deadly force to prevent him from doing that. And this is not just me talking. This is the law. This is the law, which I'm going to read to you in a moment. The law, I will remind you, that each and every one of you swore an oath to follow. Was Daisy honest with the police from the get-go? No, she wasn't. Okay? No, she wasn't. Should she have been? Probably. But can someone really understand what's going through somebody's mind when they're in that position? I think we can all agree that what happened to Daisy Link in the 5 days leading up to this incident was extraordinarily traumatic. Unless you've been through it, it's hard to imagine what that's like. I would say it's almost impossible to imagine what that's like unless you've actually experienced it. It's very easy to second guess and judge somebody for their actions when you don't know what was in their mind at the time they made it, ladies and gentlemen. As I told you before, relationships are complicated. How many times, how common is it to see a couple who clearly are wrong for each other, who clearly shouldn't be together, but for whatever reason, they keep coming back to each other. They keep interacting. Maybe they separate, maybe they come back, maybe they go back. It happens. Well, that's because these things are complicated. There are children involved. There's a history involved. There's a familiarity involved. And yes, there's love involved. And that makes it very difficult. So it's very easy for us to say, you should have left. You shouldn't have called him back. You shouldn't have gone to pick him up. You should have called the police. You should have had him deported. Should have done all these things. I agree. She should have done all those things. They should have called the police. They should have done all these things differently. She didn't want to. Daisy told you why. Again, this is a court order. This court order says Pedro gets to see those kids once in person, see them in person, once a month with the supervision of his mother. Daisy had a fear, a reasonable fear, that if the court found out that she was allowing Pedro to see those kids in person, knowing that he's still being violent, knowing that he's still abusing drugs, a court could very easily and theoretically say, you know what, you're not supposed to have him around those kids. You know what he's doing. We're going to take those kids away from you. As a parent, is there anything scarier? Anything scarier than losing your kids? I don't think so. If you can think of something, I'd love to hear it. I can't think of anything. I'd rather be killed than lose my kids, personally. She feels the same way. That's why she did what she did. You can disagree with it. You can not like it. That's fine. That's your right. But that doesn't change the fact that at the time she pulled the trigger, she had every right to do so. This paper that you all have, jury instructions, this is the only law that applies in this case. There is no other law, no other instructions that apply to this case. You are to decide your verdict based on these instructions and these instructions alone. Okay? So let's go through the instructions. Page 3. This is really loud. Sorry. The best I can do, I'm sorry. Page 3. You all have it, so that helps. Justifiable homicide. Use of deadly force is justifiable if done while resisting an attempt to murder or commit a felony upon the defendant, in or upon any dwelling house which the defendant was at the time of the killing. Miss Link was at her home. She had every right to be there. Mr. Jimenez had no right to be there. I don't care if his kids were there. He had no right to be there. He had no right to see them. You saw the order. He did not live there. He did not have the keys. He was not on the lease. The address was not on his license. You've heard testimony from multiple people that he did not live there. You have not heard testimony from a single witness that said he lives there. They want you to believe he lives there because it's convenient for their case. They don't want you to believe that he didn't live there, which he didn't, because they know that if you know he didn't live there, they're done. Their case is over, and I'll explain that to you in a second. So the question is, has the state proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Pedro Jimenez lived in that house? No, they haven't. At best, maybe you can all say, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. What are they pointing to prove that he lived there? Because there are some shoes and some shirts that appear to be for males in the house? Does that prove he lived there? I'm sorry, it doesn't. And use your common sense, people, okay? I still have stuff at my old house, and I've been divorced for 10 years. It's still there. It's not my house. I don't live there. I don't have the key. I can't go there and come and go as I please. No, I have to knock on the door. I have to be allowed inside like everybody else. Was that my house before? Sure. It's not anymore. Do I still pay the mortgage? Yeah, I do actually. But I still don't have a right to go in there because it's not my house anymore. That was not Pedro's house. And unless they prove that it was his house and that he lived there beyond a reasonable doubt, then no. Then as far as you're concerned, that was not his house. He didn't live there. He did not have a right to be there. Same page, page 3, excusable homicide. The killing of a human being is excusable and therefore lawful. The killing is lawful, which means it's not illegal. It is lawful, not a crime. Under any one of these following circumstances, when the killing is committed by accident or misfortune, and doing any lawful act by any lawful means in the ordinary caution, okay? Number 2, when the killing occurs by accident and misfortune in the heat of passion, upon sudden and specific provocation. Can you see how that scenario could apply to this case? He's been asked to leave multiple times. You heard testimony from Daisy Link. Before she got the gun and fired, Mr. Jimenez grabbed her by her hair and threw her. And in grabbing her by her hair, he opened up the wounds that he created just days before, and he threw her to the ground. She's already told him to leave. She grabbed the gun. She told him, leave. And you heard what he said. I'm not leaving. I want to die. I'm ready to die. And then he ran to go break into the house. Then she fired. And then, and only then, when she fired, that's when he started running away. It took the shot. It took her firing the gun for him to abandon his intention to break into her house. And if you are stopping somebody from breaking into your house, that is justifiable use of deadly force. and it was going to happen imminently. We know that. We saw the blood trail. We heard the testimony. He was going to break into her house. She did everything she could to stop him. He refused. So she fired the gun, and it worked because when she fired the gun, he ran off to the alley. I want to talk about the instruction for second-degree murder. This is on page 4. You can see it there. Three elements that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in order for you to be able to convict Daisy Link. And this is what your case is going to come down to. Number 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. And number 3, there was an unlawful killing. So, I highlighted the relevant portions in 2 and 3, just to give you all a little guidance there. So, in order for you to convict her of anything, whether it's murder or manslaughter, of anything, you have to find that her firing that gun was a criminal act and that her killing Pedro was unlawful. So, in other words, what your deliberations are going to come down to is whether or not this killing was justified or not. Was Daisy justified in using deadly force or not? That's it. That's the decision you have to make, and that's going to be how you reach your verdict, okay? It says it right there. So, let's fast forward here. This is the key instruction in this case, ladies and gentlemen, page 8. It's the longest instruction out of all of them. It's, oh boy, look at that. It's 3 pages. It's 3 pages long. So, sorry, but we need to go. Justifiable use of deadly force. 3rd paragraph, okay? Defendant does not have the burden of proving that she was justified in using deadly force. Instead, for you to find her guilty, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was not justified. This is what I said earlier. I don't have to prove that she was justified. It's the other way around. They have to prove she was not justified. So have they proven that she's not justified? Have they proven it beyond all reasonable doubt? Well, let's see. Let's have a look. Keep reading. The law on justifiable use of deadly force is as follows. Defendant is justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent the following: imminent death of great bodily harm to herself or another. So if she believes that imminently means it's about to happen, it's going to happen any moment now, that she's going to get hurt or another person's going to get hurt, you have the right to use deadly force in that instance, okay? And then there's another option, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against herself or another. At the time that she shot, Pedro Jimenez was running to break into her house, to barricade her out of her house. Okay? He had no right to be there. When you enter somebody's house without permission, that's burglary. I'm going to read you the definition of burglary in a moment. So that's number 1. That's one felony that he was about to commit, which, according to this instruction, if she knows that he's about to commit a burglary upon her house, she has the right to shoot him, to stop him. This is the law that you are required to follow. In addition to burglary, false imprisonment. There are 2 kids in that house. Those kids are in her custody, not in Pedro's custody, her custody. By barricading himself inside the house, Pedro would be illegally separating those kids by force from their mother, without permission, without authority, without any right to do so. She has a right to use deadly force if she has reason to believe that that's about to happen. And we all know that that was about to happen. He was about to burglarize her home. He was about to lock her out of her home and commit false imprisonment upon her kids. So moving on to the next part. This long paragraph here, right here on page 4, on page 8. This paragraph has to do with whether or not Daisy Link had a duty to retreat or not a duty to retreat. You can go through that and read it to yourself, but ladies and gentlemen, as you will see in a moment, she had no duty to retreat because she had every right to be there because that was her home. On the other hand, Pedro Jimenez had no right to be there because that was not his home. He had been told repeatedly to leave. He had been threatened that they would call the police. And he did leave, but he kept coming back. Multiple times, he kept coming back, kept terrorizing this woman. She did it while her mother was there, and then he did it again after his mother left. His mother left at 1:32 in the morning, and he still came back after that. He's terrorizing her at 3 o'clock, 3 something in the morning. I'm going to refer you to page 8 at the bottom right here. If the defendant was in a dwelling or residence in which she had a right to be, which she did, she had no duty to retreat and had the right to stand her ground and use or threaten to use force, including deadly force, if she reasonably believed that such conduct was necessary to prevent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or the imminent commission of a burglary or a false imprisonment against herself or another. So again, this says, again, if she has reason to believe, well, first of all, it says if she's in a place where she has a right to be, there's no question she had every right to be there. That was her home. If she's in a place where she has a right to be, she can use deadly force to stop somebody from burglarizing her home and to stop somebody from keeping her outside of the home and keeping her away from her kids who are inside the home. She had a right to use deadly force in each of those and in both of those. This is the law that you are required to follow. After this defines the crimes of burglary and false imprisonment. These are the 2 crimes that I would submit to you.
Hey, Rosie.
The evidence has clearly demonstrated Pedro Jimenez was intent on doing and was in the process of doing, and the only reason he stopped from doing it is because she fired that shot. That was the only way that she was going to stop him from doing that, and we know that from Pedro Jimenez himself. I'm ready to die. What does that mean? I'm going to do what I want. You want to stop me? You're going to have to kill me. You're going to have to kill me. Burglary. Entering a dwelling owned by or in the possession of another, and at the time of entering the dwelling, the unauthorized person had the intent to commit the crime of false imprisonment. Please tell me, how has the state disproven that this was about to happen? Can you honestly say to me that the state has convinced you beyond all reasonable doubt that Pedro Jimenez was not in the process of rushing in to barricade himself inside that house and lock Daisy Link out? Have they disproven that beyond a reasonable doubt? If the answer is no, then your verdict is not guilty. If the answer is yes, then okay, then I would ask you to ask yourself, how have they proven it? What have they shown you? What have they introduced to prove that? I would submit to you they've introduced nothing to disprove that that man was going to do that. Certainly not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's burglary. False imprisonment. That's the next one. We're still on page 9. It's right here. False imprisonment is defined as follows: to forcibly or secretly confine or abduct another person without lawful authority to do so. Forcibly would apply here. He was attempting to forcibly confine those kids within that house and keep the mother out of the house. The next paragraph defines secretly. You're free to read that as much as you want, but secretly doesn't apply here, so I'm not concerned with that. The next paragraph is very important. Very important. Confinement of a child under the age of 13 is against the child's will if such confinement is without the consent of the child's parent or legal guardian. In other words, if you're locking 2 kids inside a house against the will of those kids' legal guardian, and those kids are under the age of 13, which, as you already know, those kids were ages 7 and 5 at the time, then that's false imprisonment. We know that Pedro was not their legal guardian because that's what this order says. So unless the state is going to come up here and find a way to invalidate this court order, which if they have a way to do that, I'd love to hear it. They're not going to. This is a court order. This is a valid court order. And this court order was in place in full force on that night. Daisy Link asked him to leave. He did not respect her request to leave. He was going to commit false imprisonment. And that is what this instruction tells you. I'm going to keep reading. Please bear with me. But again, this is a long instruction, but it is the most important instruction in this case, because this is what your deliberations are going to come down to. In deciding whether the defendant was justified in the use of deadly force, you must consider the circumstances at the time the force was used. The danger need not have been actual. I'll say that again. The danger need not have been actual. So it's actually legal to use deadly force against somebody, even if there's no real danger. The key is whether the person using the force reasonably believed that the danger was there. Now, I would submit to you, there's no question that the danger was real. There's no question that the danger was imminent. But this instruction shows you that even in cases where there's no real danger, if you find that the person who used deadly force had reason to believe that there was a danger, that's enough. That's enough to say that the use of deadly force was justified and lawful. I'll keep reading. To justify the use of deadly force, the appearance of imminent danger must have been so real that the defendant actually believed the use of deadly force was necessary. Pedro told her, "You're going to have to kill me. I'm ready to die." What else was she supposed to believe? What else was she supposed to believe? She didn't put herself in that situation. He put her in that situation. The state will tell you, oh no, she brought him to the house, so it's her fault. No, she brought him to the house. She knew she was going to leave. First of all, she was supposed to pick him up and take him to his mother's house, but she explained to you she came back because he still had his keys. She wanted him to see the kids. She wanted to make it work so that she could get away from this man finally, move away from him, not have to deal with him beating her up. and she was implementing her plan. Whether it was a good plan or not, that's up to you to decide. But that was her plan. That's what you heard. It has not been refuted by the state in any way, shape, or form. She went to pick him up. She came over. She came over while her mother was there, and you heard from her mother and you heard from her. He was obviously high on cocaine because he used a bunch of cocaine at his friend's house. He bought a bunch of cocaine from his friend. He was drinking. You heard what was in his system when he died. He was extremely under the influence of a ridiculous amount of cocaine. He was drunk. He was out of control. She brought him back, and as soon as he started becoming violent, which he did on multiple occasions, as you heard from her mother and from her, as soon as that happened, he was told to leave. He was told, 5 different times to leave? And 5 different times he left. 5 different times he came back. You saw video of him running around. There's a video of him being told to leave a few hours before he was shot. How many times does this woman have to tell him to leave? Once is enough. Once is all it takes. It's my house. You need to leave. You need to leave. If you don't leave, you're committing a crime by not leaving. Okay? You're committing a crime. But he knew that she didn't want to call the police on him. He knew that for whatever reason, and she shouldn't have, but for whatever reason, unfortunately, she had a soft spot for this man. And she kept giving him opportunity after opportunity, even though, as we all know, she probably shouldn't have. But again, relationships are complicated, and you can judge her all you want. You can disagree with her all you want, but you don't know what it was like for her. And that's the decision she made. And it's understandable because, again, relationships are complicated. And that's the position that she was in. But she didn't create this position. She asked him to leave. He put her in that position by coming back repeatedly. I'm at the bottom of page 9. The defendant is presumed to have held a reasonable fear of imminent peril of death or great bodily harm to herself or another when using defensive force that was intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm to another, if, this is important, A, the person against whom the defensive force was used was in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering or had unlawfully and forcefully entered a dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle. This is black and white. There's no room for interpretation here. You are presumed to be in reasonable fear and justified to use deadly force if somebody is in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering your home. That is exactly what he was doing. And unless they can prove to you beyond all reasonable doubt that that's not what he was doing, then your verdict is not guilty. Anything other than that would be a disgrace. And I know you all don't want to make a disgrace here. I think you all want to get it right. There's only one right answer here, okay? I'm confident that you're going to get the right answer. I want to go to the next page. The next paragraph B. Defendant knew or had reason to believe that an unlawful and forcible entry or unlawful and forcible act was occurring. This goes hand in hand with the previous one. Reason to believe it was occurring. He told her he was going to do it. He told her, you're going to have to kill me. And she saw him doing it.
Hey, Andrew.
And the blood trail, which begins in front of that front door, corroborates what she told you. The state has given you nothing to dispute or disprove that. The next paragraph, this is page 10, right over here. The very next paragraph talks about situations where the presumption of reasonable fear does not apply. Okay? So if any of these examples, there's 4 examples. If any of them were to apply, then you could come to the conclusion that, okay, well, then this person didn't have a reasonable reason to believe that she was in danger of something bad happening to her. I'm going to start with the last one, with D, because this one's easy. The person against whom the defensive force is used is law enforcement. Well, Pedro Jimenez is not a law enforcement official, so we know D doesn't apply. So you can scratch out D. D is useless to you, okay? C, the person who uses defensive force is engaged in a criminal activity or is using the residence to further a criminal activity. This doesn't apply either. Daisy was not using her home to conduct a criminal activity, and she was not committing a crime when she was just at home in her front yard, minding her own business. So C does not apply. You can disregard C. B, the person or persons sought to be removed is a child or grandchild. Pedro Jimenez is a grown man. He's a grown man who's 6'4" and weighs 250 or 60 pounds, and he could easily beat the crap out of Daisy whenever he wants, and he has on multiple occasions. So B doesn't apply. So all that's left is A. So let's read A. The person against whom the defensive force is used has the right to be or is a lawful resident of the residence, such as an owner, lessee, or title holder. Has the state proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Pedro is a lawful resident, owner, lessee, or title holder? No. They got up here and they told you over and over it was his home. He lived there. They were a family. They can say it till they're blue in the face. They have to prove it. Have they proven it? No. The only proof you've received on that topic is that it wasn't his home. You have lease agreements that he's not on. You have his license that he's not on. You have testimony showing that the locks were changed. You have testimony that he lived at his mother's house. Would he go over there to see the kids? Yes, but that doesn't mean that he lived there. All the evidence that you've heard proves that he did not live there. At best, you can say, well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But if that's your conclusion, then it has not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They have not done so. I want to focus on this paragraph, which is right after A, B, C, and D. A person who unlawfully and by force enters or attempts to enter another's residence is presumed to be doing so with the intent to commit an unlawful act involving force or violence. The fact that he was forcing his way into her house, according to this instruction, allows you to presume that he was doing so with the intent of committing a violent act and committing a crime, which is exactly what gives Daisy Link the right to use deadly force. And finally, and this is important, it's all important, but last paragraph, if you find that the defendant, who because of prior threats or difficulties with Pedro Jimenez had reasonable grounds to believe that she was in danger of death or great bodily harm at the hands of Pedro Jimenez, you may consider that fact in determining whether her actions were those of a reasonable person. They had prior difficulties. You know all about them. Isn't it reasonable for Daisy Link to fear that this man could hurt her, to fear that this man could kill her when he just did this to her a few days before? Yes, you can judge her for communicating with him and spending time with him in the intervening days. But as she said, number one, she loved him. That clouded her judgment. Number two, when he wasn't on drugs, there was no problem. The problem was when he was on drugs. And we know, without question, he was on a lot of drugs when she shot him. And what does she say? When he's on drugs, when he's on cocaine, he's a monster. And that's what he is. That's what he is. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning, top of page 11, in considering the issue of self-defense or defense of another, you may take into account the relative physical abilities and capacities of the defendant and Pedro Jimenez. Pedro Jimenez is a man, Daisy Link is a woman. Daisy Link's not a petite woman, she's a larger woman, but Pedro Jimenez was a lot bigger than her, a lot stronger than her, a lot more dangerous than her, and he's proven that he could hurt her, and he did hurt her over and over and over again. You may not like her, you may disagree with her, you may think whatever you want to think. You may take exception to what she said on that video. You may do all that. But none of that changes the fact that at the time she fired that shot, that man was going to barricade himself inside that house. And according to the law, which you all swore you would follow, she was justified in using deadly force.
I agree. Large Marge.
Can we stop the clock for this look here then? This is nice to go over this shot. Look at it. Walk the lines, do something more. So walk the line. Walk the line, Anderson. Think about how he's going to terrorize Daisy next. She's been doing all day. He's been told to do it 5 times. He's back again. You think he's back again for a good reason? You think he's back again to do something nice? You think he's back again to make up? No, he's back again to cause trouble. Does that sound like somebody who's in fear? No, that sounds like somebody who's coked out of his mind, somebody who likes to beat women up, somebody who likes to terrorize women, and somebody who's going to break into his ex-girlfriend's house because he can. Daisy Link is not guilty. Find her not guilty, please. Thank you.
Thank you. State report.
Her lawyer's doing a great job. I think they do get a rebuttal.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she went and bought him beer, you know? She knew what she was doing. But I still think it'll be manslaughter or less. I agree, Dandy. Well, I think the state gets a rebuttal pretty much. Oh no. I'm sorry, Cara.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is the last time I'm going to talk to you. I'm sure you're as sick of my voice as I am at this point. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but there's a couple of points that I want to touch on about what defense just mentioned. He said that the officers were rude, disrespectful, mean. That's actually not what Daisy said yesterday on the stand. She even mentioned that they let her go to the bathroom at her house. They spoke to her. She even said to Officer Edwards, nobody would have done this to him. I don't know who would. Except on cross-examination, what she said was, I shouldn't have, because she knew she had other options. She knew if we take her at her word, and I think we can all agree there is absolutely zero reason to take her at her word at this point, lie after lie after lie. This happened 5 days ago. She said she spoke to the police. Maybe, maybe not. Lie after lie after lie. She shouldn't have. If that's true, despite the fact that on her phone, those videos conveniently aren't there, call the cops, tell them. Let them know. Take your kids and flee. Your kids, your children, your 8-year-old and your 5-year-old, take them. Get them away from that dangerous man. That's what she wants you to believe. Instead, though, what does she do? According to her, he leaves. She goes in her car, goes back home, takes a nap. Day later, day after that, Pedro comes over. They sleep together. They mentioned that I mentioned on my closing argument that I said that the defendant was upset that the victim wasn't home. And they said that's not true. There's no evidence of that. That's actually not true. She says at some point in her statement, I don't have the timestamp, but she says in her statement, it's not fair. I told my mom it's not fair. He's always on the run. He's never home. She says directly to the officers, it's not fair. I'm upset. Almost beaten to death. These are horrible. Horrible. But as we heard, Daisy admitted she herself is an abuser. These are horrible, but these happened 5 days before. Was it going through her mind when she invited him over the day after or the day after that? Was it going through her mind when she picked him up from a friend's house? It wasn't. She had forgotten about this. She even said it on the stand yesterday. How do we know it was their home? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Daisy Link told us it was yesterday. She said Pedro never had a key, except on cross, she said, well, actually, he may have. When he left, he probably had a key to my house. They lived together. How do we know? Well, here's the thing. On Pedro's address, it has a on his license, it has a certain address on it. But what else? It has that address on it. Mail that was found in a car with Daisy Link's name on it as well. They lived together. But you don't have to take the evidence like that. Pedro Jr. said the same thing. He said, my dad lives in my car, or his car, because he's a trucker. He's never home, except when he's home. He lives here. He sleeps on the couch sometimes, sure. But this is his home. He said that as much. The court order, I'm sorry, the court order, this is what they thought of it. They thought it was trash. That's what they did with it. They threw it on the ground. They didn't care about it. How do we know that? It's on video. She's giving him more than what this says. This, to them, was trash. There is no termination of parental rights. They ignored it over and over and over again. The pistol whipping episode from 5 days ago, if you take her at her word, and you shouldn't, there is no reason to take Daisy Link at her word. But if you take her at her word, it happened 5 days before. And then they slept together. And then she picked him up. And the interesting thing there about picking him up from the friend's house is she says it's a drug den. There's prostitutes, there's drugs throughout. He's a monster on drugs. Well, we have it on video of them actually arriving back from that house. You tell me if that looks like an angry, aggressive man playing with his children. Apparently high on cocaine, according to Daisy at that point. A monster is what she said, except she let that monster hang around her children. Play with them. Be around the house. The video that was destroyed, it wasn't some cover up. It wasn't a conspiracy. They actually explained explicitly how. Sergeant Fernandez came in and explained she was called out on scene, plugged in a hard drive. It wasn't working. So what they do? They have to take it back to headquarters. There is a specific program that they use. And she explained, if they run that program on that hard drive, plug it back in, it will delete everything. It will reset the hard drive. And so what do? They attempt and attempt and attempt to get that video, but they can't. And they give up. And so they return it back to the homeowner, who then puts it back in. It's an old hard drive. It got reset. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Daisy Link's story doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because of the gunshot and how it traveled. Because what she says is he was charging at me and I fired. The only way this gunshot, this trajectory makes any sense at all is if he is running away. That upward trajectory through the foot, in the neck, through the thigh, in and out, mean is dead. Is it his back is turned and he is actually running away? Otherwise, you'd have an injury that way to hit the front of his body. That's not what happened here.
30 more seconds. Hey, Miss North.
We know what happened here. We know that Daisy Link purposely discharged that firearm at Pedro Jimenez as he fled her. The state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty of second-degree murder, and you should find her guilty as such. Thank you.
On page 19. In just a few moments, you will be taken to the jury room by the bailiff. The first thing you should do is choose a foreperson who will preside over your deliberations. The foreperson should see to it that your discussions are carried on in an organized way and that everyone has a fair chance to be heard. It is also the foreperson's job to sign and date the verdict form when you all have agreed on a verdict and to bring the verdict form back to the courtroom when you return. During deliberations, jurors must communicate about the case only with one another and only when all jurors are present in the jury room. If a juror goes to the restroom, the deliberation should stop until the juror returns. You are not to communicate with any other person outside the jury room about this case. Until you have reached a verdict, you must not talk about this case in person or through the telephone, writing, or electronic communication, such as an email or any other means. Do not contact anyone to assist you during the deliberations. These communications rules apply until I discharge you at the end of the case. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or any other instruction I have given you in this case, you must tell me by giving a note to the bailiff. Many of you have cell phones, tablets, laptops, or other electronic devices here in the courtroom. The rules do not allow you to bring your phones or any of those types of electronic devices into the jury room. Kindly leave those devices at your seats where they will be guarded by the bailiff while you deliberate. You can send a note or a phone call to your loved ones, letting them know you're deliberating before Umberto takes those electronic devices. If you need to communicate with me, so from this point on, if you're going to communicate with me, send a note through the bailiff. If you have voted, do not disclose the actual vote in the notes. If you have a question, I will talk with the lawyers before I answer. So it may take some time. You may continue your deliberations while you wait for my answer. I will answer any questions if I can in writing or orally here in open court. During trial, items were received into evidence as exhibits. You may examine whatever exhibits you think will help you in your deliberations. These exhibits will be sent into the jury room with you when you begin to deliberate. If there's something missing, send a note, or we'll try to communicate with you if there's anything that we needed to keep back with us. If you need extra copies of anything, such as the transcripts, let us know. I can make 6 copies for you all. In closing, let me remind you that it is important that you follow the law spelled out in these instructions in deciding your verdict. There are no other laws that apply to this case. Even if you do not like the laws that must be applied, you must use them. For more than 2 centuries, we have lived by the Constitution and the law. No juror has the right to violate the rules we share. You can keep those copies with you. One of them has to be signed and submitted to me, by me to the clerk. I have 3 jurors, so I know that you all have been very dedicated. We can hear you laughing, so I think you all have become close since then. That's a good thing. But there's 3 dedicated jurors that will be leaving us. So you're going to go with Umberto up to my office. We have lunch for you. I'll shake your hand and thank you. It is Grace Rivas, Lisette del Carmen Meza, and Crystal Martinez. So just keep all your stuff with you. Follow Umberto and Lisette up to the 4th floor.
Why does she say their names out loud?
And then you all can go into the jury room now.
All
Take-
right, sure.
I think 4 to 6 years if she don't walk. Right. Yeah, she was saying their names. Like, what the hell?
If you want, take your time, send the message. Umberto will collect your electronic devices. Thank you.
Wolfpack, yesterday, we streamed yesterday and I put chapters in all of the lives when we're done. So there's chapters.
All right,
I
jurors
think
left.
4
lawyers,
hours.
please take a look at the exhibits. If there's a clean laptop, I'd like to send that back.
Yes. Judge, can I just run to Dillo's quote real quick?
Oh, sure.
I'll clean up my mess.
All right, we can go off record when Mr.
Right.
Tomas comes back. We'll discuss the exhibits. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how long they'll deliberate. I'd say maybe 4 hours. I'm kind of with Mustang on that. Or like maybe mid-morning tomorrow. It depends on how late they allow them to stay in the courtroom. I can't believe she said their names on record, like out loud for everybody. So the jury is going to go and deliberate, and we're basically going to be on verdict watch until they get done deliberating. And then I will come live again and we will hear what they decided. Yeah, they dismissed those 3 jurors, but I wouldn't think they'd still call their name out loud, you know, Brandy? Thank you for being here. It was just odd to me the way they called their name out loud. They're here. It's 2:04 p.m. So if they stay after 5, we might get a verdict today. If not, I think it'd be mid-morning. Yeah, I know. That's crazy to me. Okay. So they're on verdict watch, and we're going to be on verdict watch too. Let me come and grab this. Hio, True Crime Guardians with Hio Sandra sent a super sticker. Thank you so much for the super sticker. It was a rose. That was so very sweet and supportive of her, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And then Mark the Shark gifted a Speculation Station membership. That went to Norma. Norma told him thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. I know he's not here right now, but I hope he's having a great day. If you guys have not subscribed to Mark the Shark, definitely do so. He's doing big things over there. Norma, I'm going to grab the haunted train to pick you up on the way to Speculation Station. Thank you so much. They do normally just address them by number. I've never heard them say the juror's name out loud. Like, that's so weird to me. A lot of things about this trial were very weird. I will, as long as I don't forget, you want to get Crazy Train before we leave? Yeah, I'll do Crazy Train real quick. Crazy Train. I feel that way too after watching this trial. As long as I don't forget, I'll do a poll after the live stream. I am dropping when we play the outro song, I'm going to go ahead and drop Michelle Martin's plea bargain interview. I don't know if you guys know the Victoria Martin's case. If not, there's a playlist on my channel with all the interrogations and interviews. I've just recently gotten back 2 interviews for Michelle Martin's plea deal hearing. In that case, Victoria Martin's was essayed, homicided, and decapitated on her 10th birthday in Albuquerque, New Mexico. To this day, the person that essayed her on that day is still an unknown male. They don't even know who he is. Um, she had been essayed before that. And so the interviews and interrogations talk about that if you want to check that out. Right now, I have the AM session for the day that she basically went and met with the district attorney's office and told them everything she knew without in exchange for a plea deal of 12 years. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I greatly appreciate that. I'm going to try to see what it is. Oh, my live's not up. Um, so if you guys want to check that out, definitely do so. If you do not know the case, please go check out the playlist because that will give you some background and you'll get to see the first interrogations in that case and kind of understand what happened in the story more so. Donna, thank you so much for the little heart sticker. That was so very sweet and supportive of you, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much for the support. That helps out more than you guys know. Thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate that. That was so sweet of y'all. I really appreciate that. And I love y'all so very much. I know, Rosie. Wasn't that cool? Norma got it. We were super excited to see that. These people taping this live trial are supposed to mute names. I know. Like, I don't know why they said the names out loud. Thank you for the support. Yes. Thank you so much. We appreciate your hard work. Plus, we're smarter because of it. Sometimes I feel like I listen to some of these things, especially criminals talking, and I lose a couple of brain cells. But I'm glad that we get to come together and talk about it because we get to see other people's point of view. And I think that's really important and very special. Mustang, thank you so much for the $2. I greatly appreciate that. Y'all are so sweet and supportive. Thank you so much for that. You guys are so amazing. I love our speculating family so very much. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I'm glad that you were here with us. I know you were one of the ones that really wanted to see this trial. And so I'm glad that you've been here with us through the whole trial. And I really appreciate y'all's point of views because you guys make me look at things from all the different perspectives that there are. And I see a lot of things that I didn't think about, before. And I know other people in chat do as well. We are on verdict watch and we will be watching for a verdict until we get the verdict back. I don't think I think it will be at least 5 or 6 o'clock before we get a verdict if we get it today. I don't think this jury's going to deliberate too long because I think that they're already pretty set with manslaughter. I don't think she'll get convicted of homicide in the second degree personally. But either way, tonight or like first thing in the morning, um, we will be back with the verdict. UTD, I saw that. So yeah, we talked about her briefly. The woman that stabbed the little boy, uh, Chandler. Chandler. I know his name was Cash. Cash. I know it was Cash. I think. I think that was his name. She got convicted on all charges, guilty on everything, which I thought was a win for us. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick before we go. I saw it yesterday on my news feed. Let's see. This is a says watch as the jury reaches a verdict. I'll pull it up before we go. I'm glad she was found guilty too, but I think that woman needs some serious mental help, if I'm being honest. So this says jury finds Bianca Ellis guilty on all charges for fatally stabbing 3-year-old Julian Wood. I was wrong on the name, unfortunately. After hearing a week of testimony, a jury
It's
verdict
Bayside
in the
Furniture's
case-
annual half-off sale.
in the case of a toddler who was fatally stabbed in a grocery store parking lot last year. On Wednesday, Judge Russo announced the jury found Bianca Ellis guilty on all charges and will be sentenced on October 27th. Actually, was that a year?
Cell phones off, please.
Does anyone know how long the jury was out on her case? It's probably going to be about the same. We are on verdict watch.
Okay, Ash, thanks.
I think I could find her. If we're talking about Daisy, I think it would be manslaughter, but that would be it. Because she did take him there. But it's a TV situation, and she probably had battered women syndrome. So, you know, I can see both sides of it, you know. Perhaps insane. If you're talking about her, yeah, guilty, perhaps insane. Clearly either in jail or mental.
All right, thank you. You may be seated.
Kathleen, you're going to forget. You think it's going to be a mistrial?
All right, so ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I've been told you have a verdict, and so I'll ask the foreperson to please provide the verdict to my bailiff. Thank you.
Thank you guys. You guys make it great.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the
Right.
jury, at this time, we thank you for your service. Again, I don't think any of us could go too far beyond saying that having you for 2 weeks, we know has been a cause for you to disrupt your lives, and so we thank you for your service. At this time, I'll read the verdicts on all charges, and then with respect to that, I will poll each of you just to confirm that it is your decision of this verdict. So with respect to the 9 counts and the furthermore, this jury says that they duly find and impaneled as sworn jurors in this case do find the defendant, Bianca Ellis, guilty of all charges. Those guilty charges also carry with it the furthermore that she did commit the other charge as requested with a finding of all 12 of you. So with that being said, juror number 1, is this your decision?
Yes.
Juror number 2? Juror number 3? Juror number 4? Juror number 5? Juror number 6? Juror number 7? Juror number 8? Juror number 9? Juror number 10? Juror number 11? And juror number 12. All right, thank you. Again, I thank you for your service on behalf of Cuyahoga County and the 34 judges here. And we, at this time, will rise for the jury and we'll have a moment to speak to you afterwards.
You reminded me of.
I'll have counsel to sidebar to review the verdict.
I think she should be in a mental facility though for the rest of her life. Okay, so that was her being found guilty. Abellis, we're on verdict watch for Daisy Link. Yeah, now we wait on a verdict. She did. She stabbed the baby outside of the parking lot of a grocery store. UTD, I was going to tell you that that would be, we'd only know that through the results from the internal affairs investigation done by the jail facility. Karen, I'm going to miss you too, but I really feel like we're going to be back sooner than later. I don't know how anybody else didn't see that knife, but you know, nowadays people don't even do anything. They just start recording. It reads, after the verdict was announced, Julian Wood's parents, Margaret and Jared Wood, made a statement to the media. I think that's what I was playing.
Thank everyone for the support.
The love and support for our son.
Yes.
Everybody that's visited him, commented, sent love. We appreciate you guys so much. This was for him today.
Thank you, guys.
Are you very thankful for the prosecution?
And we're very thankful for the prosecution and everybody that's helped us here.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So they're glad with the verdict. Quote, we just want to thank everyone for the love and support of our son. Everybody that visited him, commented, sent love. We appreciate you guys so much. This was for him today, unquote. The jury heard closing arguments on Monday and Tuesday with deliberations starting Tuesday afternoon. See, and that's the difference between a public defender and a pay. What? And a paid for public defender. Wait a minute. I'm not seeing it. Send it to me in Discord. Is it? I don't want to screen snipe him. Look, check it out. I am going to drop his link so you guys can head over there to check him out. Because I want y'all to go over there and watch it. Yeah, he's live. Let's see. Breaking news. Jake Harrow admits to unalive the homicide of baby Emmanuel Harrow. I've got the link right here. Yeah. Well, I don't know how to send y'all, but I'll play the outro. Y'all go ahead and go to Mark. I will come live again if there is a verdict. Okay. So y'all go ahead and jump over to Mark. I'm going to play the outro song and drop that video for y'all to watch after he just started. Okay, he was talking in my headphone. All right, so I'm going to drop my video for y'all to watch afterwards. Y'all go ahead and go check out Mark, and I will see y'all when there is a verdict. Love y'all so much. If nobody's told you, you are enough. You are important. You are special, and you are loved. I'm going to pin Mark's link to the top of the chat. Go see Mark. He's live. No, sorry. I don't know. I guess baby Emmanuel is not alive. No, but evidently Jake Harrow just confessed to the homicide of baby Emmanuel Harrow, or confessed to, or something. I don't know. Mark has the details. I'm going to drop in there before I take a short nap and continue to watch for the verdict. I'll have Mr. Speculating wake me up if there is a verdict. I love y'all. I will be back. If not today, then probably tomorrow whenever the verdict is heard. Love y'all. Y'all have a good day. I'll drop that video so y'all can watch it afterwards. Go check out Mark because he's got some breaking news. Make sure you subscribe if you have not. All right, y'all. Love y'all. I love our speculating family so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. Please know you are enough. You are important. You are special. And you are very loved by the speculating family. Y'all have a beautiful day. If I don't see you again today, it will be tomorrow. Have a good night.